Hey everyone, and welcome to Quarantine in the Multiverse, episode 1. I'm Peter, and joining me as always, I guess, is Matt.
Worst reboot ever.
Connor's also here.
As always, feels pretty disingenuous on an episode 1.
It does, but here's the thing. This is the temporary replacement for comics in the multiverse, or comics from the multiverse rather, which is because there's no comics and there won't be comics for at least a few weeks. The funny thing about this is we were on a roller coaster this week where we thought that this was probably going to happen last week, and last week on the show, on episode 200, and obviously we'll pick up at 201 when the comics come back. Last week on the show, we said repeatedly that we thought that we weren't going to have books this week for a few weeks after that as well, and we told you about the plan for Quarantine in the Multiverse. The very night we recorded this show, it started to look like maybe there was going to be digital DC Comics, and then on Monday, the first thing we're going to talk about here is that there was big news kind of saying that, hey, even if there is a few weeks without comics, we're going to very quickly have a solution that's going to be a mix of digital and physical. And then, okay, so we've got a plan there. We're going to be back on regular schedule by the end of the month. 2 days later, that plan was dead in the water. That wasn't happening. So we're in limbo again. Obviously, there's lots of little news things to talk about and potential advancements in what's going on.
I mean, the timeline was a little bit more intricate than that, because on Monday, that was when DC told us outright, yeah, we're going to have digital comics on Wednesday. Yep. It's going to be fine. And then Monday night, they went, actually, no, we're not.
Yeah,
it was Wednesday that we got the announcement.
It was back and forth
because it was April Fool's.
Yes, it was April. Well, yes, but it wasn't an April Fool's article. It was just.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
But a lot of people thought it was. Yeah. And it was. Yeah.
No, because Ryan Higgins, right?
Yeah, Ryan Higgins
from Comics Conspiracy was saying there's big news coming. There's big news coming. This is 100% real, and we all waited with bated breath, and then they announced this digital distribution that kind of was the most common sense you could have to have comic fans like us that want to still collect physical copies, but also people that just want to read comics digitally. Yeah. You could do both.
Yeah, the idea... so just to explain this briefly, the idea with this was that via Comics Hub, which is kind of like an online kind of... A lot of the stores are using it now. It's kind of an online way of ordering your comics. They were going to do this thing where you would buy your comics from your store page on Comics Hub, and you would get a digital code immediately for the books coming out, whenever this starts in a few weeks, end of the month, whenever it would be. And you'd get a digital comic, you could read it right now, but you'd still be entitled to the physical book whenever we get back to printing and distributing physical books. So you'd have like a stack of books to pick up that you've already paid for, maybe with some postage costs that you've not paid yet if you get them mailed perhaps, but other than that, you'd have already paid for your books. The stores would get them, and the idea being that your stores would be benefiting from the money right now, so they would be having an income that they're otherwise not getting. And even with those, obviously that they're still down because there's no people wandering in and buying trades or anything like that, right? Obviously.
Yeah, and they would be a file that was from Comics Hub, so it would also keep Comixology happy that if you still wanted to order books through their service, you could. But you could, for most people that order from Comixology, they're not worried about a physical store like I am, right? Yeah. So this seemed to be like, okay, cool, like we'll do all that.
It wasn't without its problems, and
right.
Like the idea is still that, okay, let's say this goes on 3 or 4 months until Diamond's back up and shipping, and then the stores get 3 or 4 months worth of books all at once to sort out. And yes, they've been paid for, so people aren't going to abandon their pulls in the same way. But that's a lot to sort out.
It's a logistics nightmare for the stores and for Diamond.
It is though, but you look at like my shop in particular, the number of back issues that are sitting on the shelves because this was the minimum order or whatever, right? This would seem to me, at least for the comic shops, right? If they know this is how many I need to order right away and then order a little bit of extra to have up there, it just seems like it's going to save them money in the long run. And
I think this is less about the money on this particular issue and more just on...
Yeah.
They're going to get, 12, 14 weeks worth of comics arriving at once that have to be organized and mailed to the right customers. And to
put this in perspective, December 18th, right, just there, that week was huge for comic stores, right? Where basically DC weren't shipping anything the following week. A lot of Marvel were shipping barely nothing the following week. They basically double loaded 1 week before Christmas, right? It was a busy week anyway, and they double loaded it. And I saw nothing but comic stores online talking about how it was the biggest order they'd ever had, and it was like so much to deal with. It was, twice as much books, and they were struggling to do that with 2 weeks worth of comics. Even a month of comics on 1 week. Are you kidding me?
And then let's not even disregard it slightly earlier in the chain. Okay, you've got to print all of those comics at once because the printers are down right now. And then when you get to Diamond, they've got to distribute and ship all of that at once,
so
which is still significantly more than they usually do.
I mean, yeah, the only solution I could think of is that they'd have to do it gradually, so it'd basically be double shipping for a lot of weeks, where you'd have the new comics for that week, and then the first week of the backlog.
The catch up.
Yeah, and then just keep going until you eventually catch up. But hey, it doesn't matter. It's all moot now.
No.
Because it's not happening.
It seems to be it didn't happen because a lot of retailers didn't like the idea for two things. One, they didn't really appreciate that they had to pay into the Comics Hub fee, and they felt like they were being kind of strong-armed into being forced to use this. And two, that a lot of them are scared of just the idea that, okay, yes, they're getting their money for their print comics now, but they're essentially encouraging print readers to use digital in the meantime. And they're scared people will just get used to it and not go back.
My argument to that is, but what's the alternative right now?
Yeah,
that was not an alternative.
And not to sound, because that makes Pete sound like the guy from The Godfather, right? Like, this is your offer. You do it or die, right? But at the same time, they have the same things about comicsology and digital as it is now. So, I just. And also, like, I know there are shops that make you pay for your pull list, right? So I would, if my shop was like, hey, you're gonna start paying $5 a month, right, for this service to help cover their costs, because from what I read, it was like $25 a week to be into their system.
Oh, for Comics Hub, yeah.
Yeah, for Comics Hub. That's fine. Again, but I want to support my shop. I like my local shop. It's a community. So if they're gonna charge me $5 a month to help cover that cost, and that they have, like, I'm box 3, but I know they have upwards of 60 boxes.
And this is the thing. I get that, and I think it boils down to what DC said in their first statement when they did, because this was an official statement that they were going to publish comics on the Wednesday digitally. They said all our data shows that the vast majority of digital readers are never going to be print readers, and print readers will stay print readers for the most part if they were going to.
Well, their data's wrong, though.
Well, to add on to this, like, because all these concerns were first came out really in 2011 when everything was going day and date. DC were doing New 52, Marvel were kind of gradually getting into it over that year. Like, all the publishers were kind of doing it around that same time, and that's when these worries came up. And here's the thing: we have 9 years of data now. We have 9 years of comic book reading with digital day and date, and print still happening. And print sales, if I remember from my figures correctly, have went up since 2011.
They have. I can tell you 2019 had the most comic book stores open in the past decade.
Yeah, so one's driving the other. And this is what I also don't understand is they already do the reverse of this with most books, right? There's a digital code, at least there used to be, in physical.
Marvel still have that.
Yeah, that you could put in. See, this is how long it's been since I've read an actual Marvel print book that's not Thor.
Yeah.
And I just don't notice it.
Terrible paper quality.
Well, because everything else I read through Marvel is digital. But like, so again, you're getting the digital for free. This is that same thing. You're just getting it earlier so you can maintain.
Yeah.
And
there was talk about how this would actually not include Marvel and DC. Because this came out. There wasn't like an official thing. It was Comics Hub and done through Bleeding Cool, which and Ryan Higgins and Big Bang Comics, a couple of other people, retailers who were kind of spearheading this.
Yeah.
But there wasn't an official PR team. There was no official announcements from any publishers. And the problem is, DC and Marvel both have exclusive contracts with Comixology for their digital comics. So the problem is, if they start putting comics on Comics Hub, even temporarily, Comixology and Amazon wouldn't be too happy with that. So how do they get around that loophole?
But how do they get around that loophole now with their Marvel? It's not a Comixology code.
It was because they're not Marvel's is a Comixology code.
Yeah, you get in Comixology. Because your Marvel, you get it in Marvel's app, which they also have. Right. But when you get something in Marvel's app, if you buy it through Marvel, your Marvel account is linked to your Comixology, so you always get it in Comixology as well.
Oh shoot! Okay, well again.
So there's a link. I thought you were going to mention Marvel Unlimited, and I was just going to say because obviously that's
different.
A monthly subscription rather than buying a comic.
Right, no, that's different, and that's also right now for people that do want to get caught up. They are offering Disney's offering Marvel Unlimited for X amount of months free.
Yeah,
right now.
It's a really limited version of the service. It's like here are at the minute there's like 5 or 6 story arcs that you can read, and they'll be rotating those every few weeks, every month. Whatever
there's a lot of things doing this right now. HBO's got like something like 500 hours of content for free right now. WWE Network's doing a bunch of their old pay-per-views for free.
Real quick, Connor, ignore this for a second. I just want to talk about I'm so confused about the WrestleMania pay model because I'm seeing that it's up on Fight TV because I had signed up for Fight TV a little while ago and I haven't ever used it. I didn't use the pay side of it. So I get emails and it says get WrestleMania through Fight TV, but is it not going to be on the network? And then I looked up, it's still going to be on the network.
Yeah.
So are they just hoping that people that don't realize it's free on the network, even though the network's free, like who's buying it through Fight right now?
I have no idea. I guess it's probably still available for pay-per-view because just technically they have to keep those contracts with pay-per-view, even though the amount of people buying it is probably minuscule because why would they?
Right. I don't get it. Like, I understand the AEW stuff because that's their only way of putting it out, right? Is through Fight and the different apps that cost money. But there was talk that they were going to put it on ESPN Plus before all of this madness started.
Yeah, I have to imagine any talks of that completely were killed by this.
Yeah.
Just everything that's going on. Yeah.
And so I'm just wondering, like, again, Vince McMahon is a very tough brain to pick because I don't even think he knows what he's going to do half the time. So I can't think of a comics equivalent to try to tie it back in.
Yeah.
But it's just, it would be like if DC was giving out free comics right now, but then it's like, well, you can still buy them on Comixology.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
Let me just...
Anyways.
A couple of events that happened this past week, in terms of DC specifically, is that all the books that were meant to come out on Wednesday got pushed to April 29th, so a 4-week delay. But however... about a day later, though, this was updated on March 31st on Newsarama here, all those books were just removed from Comixology, from pre-order. Now, I don't know if they're back by now, but they were actually outright removed at one point during the week. So that's what we're kind of dealing with the digital stuff. It is worth mentioning that the trades that were coming out and the digital first books like Batman Adventures, they were still coming out as planned on Wednesday. They didn't move, which makes sense. There's no reason to push those.
No reason not to. I mean, even the trades, bookstores are still able to order and do those things through that route. So there's no reason to hold off on those.
And even if you couldn't, it's still content technically. It's not like the new story that's not been read yet.
Yeah, I don't think even the most, strict of comic stores when it comes to these, ideas probably don't care about the trades because they've made most of their money on the singles already. Because that's where most of comic stores' money comes from.
Well, if you get the odd store that goes a bit more towards trades, but most of the singles.
I mean, as a rule, it's the monthly singles that support the vast majority of them.
Here's a little bit of nice news. DC are donating $250,000 to Book Industry Charitable Foundation to help comic book stores and their employees during this time. So,
yeah, and Jim Lee's doing a thing on his own as well, where he's taking requests for sketches and then auctioning them on eBay, and all the proceeds are going towards a different comic store with each one.
Yeah,
no, that's nice. It's nice that they'll try to do stuff.
I mean, but that's again with the community coming together, and again why I like having comic stores, right? Because there is this community built in that even if I don't know those people very well, we're all there for the same reason, right? We all want to see the shop succeed, so we will pull together, to try to help it. It's just right now, without the main source of income, they still got to pay their bills, So it's just.
And I think the real question now it comes down to is how long are Marvel and DC going to hold off? And I include Marvel in this because obviously those are the big ones. And I know there were reports, I think it was yesterday, that Marvel are kind of put hold on up to a third of their books for May and June.
The fact
which implies they're still going to be publishing stuff come then.
Yeah, it was funny though, because Marvel's got so many books compared to DC. They've always printed more for a long time. That cutting a third actually just puts it kind of in line with what DC usually publish anyway.
It is. And so the question is, do DC and Marvel, do they just start publishing as normal at some point within a month digitally for now? Because they're losing money, right? Diamond aren't paying them. So they're losing money a lot right now, and they've got to get it somewhere. So there's only so long they're going to go without publishing digitally. The question is, do they do their full line, or do they do just select titles to tide people over?
Yeah, I want to explain something else, because I know one or two people have said to us, actually, via Twitter or emails or whatever, that like they read books physically, right? And they don't necessarily like the idea of like us covering books that aren't available physically, right? And I totally get it. I totally get the idea that we're continuing with book reviews and you can't read your book yet. And I mean, we read a lot of books physically as well, so obviously we're switching for some of them. But the problem is the same problem with the printing and the getting the books later, if they were piling up, is that if we held off in reviewing books because they weren't available physically until they were available physically, we could be in a position where there's 2 months worth of books we're behind on, and then we have to start just churning through books really quickly.
Well, and that's
up.
where stuff would start dropping.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because we already were out on Batgirl, right? So
I would say even worse. Frankly, that's a recipe for the show to end, because we can't catch up on all of this in time.
Well, then I would just join you guys on Elsewhere, and we continue doing stuff there. Like sorry, readers, of else, but write a letter to DC.
Yeah. I want to make it clear that we will continue as soon as books have been available digital. We will cover them because they're available at all, because we can't let them build up. They have to be done as they're coming out.
We also have incentive though to maybe not make that the main event. If a lot of people aren't going to tune into that because. Sure, yeah. They want to stay up. So there would be other modes to it. I remember when all this started going, Scott Snyder and Charles Soule had a thread back and forth with one another that yes, this is scary right now, but comics always adapt, and we'll find a way, to get this. It'll just be different. And we all know how comic fans are with change. Oh, yeah. Right?
Not good.
We'll change, but we're going to kick and scream and claw. On the way out.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's actually a reason, because some people think our show format's a little bit weird when we have questions and stuff, how I always put the books at the end after the questions and after everything else. But this is kind of where it's perfect for this, is that everything's always timestamped, and if you want to listen to the show but not hear the new books talk until you can eventually get your physical books, you can do that. Everything will be timestamped. Right. We make a point of not talking about spoilers from the books until we actually get to the books. Don't worry about that. Yeah. But
no. But I'm just saying, if a sizable, viewership were like, hey, we would adapt. You know what I mean? And it just wouldn't be a solely review show. We could do questions. We could talk about, comics as a whole. There's other methods. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But again, like Soule and Snyder were saying, stuff changes, and we can just keep rolling. We're all spokes on this wheel.
All of us, when the shops are back open, are going to go back to buying our physical copies from our stores. It's not like, okay, yeah, we're double different right now. We're going to have to get some digital stuff. And, I had to do it last week, for example, because in the UK, we didn't get our comics last week. We were behind the US already. So I had to double dip on some stuff. And it's like, right, okay, that's what I got to do because, we're doing the show. And that's the nature of the beast.
I can tell you immediately the Flash, I'd have to say goodbye. and something like Hawkman, that would take priority over some other books.
Sure, definitely.
Or Bendis' Superman over Action. I see JRJR is still on there. Okay, well, I don't need to read you right away.
I don't need to double dip on that.
Yeah.
No. So, just this, and I guess it would say, it would make you love the books you already love even more, and it would make you not like the books you already. And it kind of, for someone like me that has a hard time making decisions, and I waffled back on not reading Flash. You give me 4 issues of Flash to catch up on because it's double shipping. you made the decision for me.
Yeah,
you
it
know?
was easier.
So,
Yeah, so as far as going forward with this show and what's going to be, we're going to talk about different things. We're going to have some questions. I've got a Patreon to do. We're going to have whatever movies we've been watching, games we've been playing, blah blah blah. I do have some ideas for things in the next coming weeks because we definitely got at least a few weeks of this before we get any books back.
I don't like the idea of leaving all the ideas to Pete. So me and Matt are going to veto whatever we deem inappropriate.
Yeah.
Sure, you can pretend to have that power, but and the point is that maybe some sort of quiz or something. I'll make Connor and Matt go head to head or something like that. That could be a fun segment on one of the weeks. We talked about doing like another top 10 of movies from like a year gone past, because we just did our top 10 of 2019. Maybe we'll do a top 10 of like some previous year, or a top 10 that's more comics related, maybe for something, if we think of something that we can do it for. But we've done characters and villains before, so we can't do that again. But
we've done, I mean, they could be updated. We change. P knows who Starfire is now, so
oh god,
shut up. Where was I going to go with that? I was just thinking too. Tim's been recommending like smaller books each day of these quarantines. We could do something similar.
We could review Goatman. Let's read.
I have the first 10 issues on my bookshelf.
Last time I read Goatman, I was blind drunk.
I mean,
so...
I don't know.
That's your default sitting, bud.
Yeah, I don't think we could get those issues though, because I don't know if we're able to. I think Midnight Delivery is on Comixology. We could get the two.
That's what I've read.
Yeah. We can read and review the 2 issues of Goatman and the Midnight Delivery.
It's not like we don't know the sole creator of the. I'm sure there's ways for him to get them. I mean, again, I have them.
Wait.
First time I met Tim, he gave me the first 10 issues.
I thought you were going to suggest we should get the creator on for an interview. And I'm like,
we can.
It's Tim. Let's just get an interview.
We can. I'm just saying, like, I could talk cryptids with Tim for hours. We almost have
pretending we got a highbrow exclusive interview, but it's just bloody Tim.
Tim, who's literally a regular on another show on this same channel.
Yeah. It's great. It's called Synergy, Pete.
Yes.
But yeah, so I'm just saying, like, there's options for Goatman if we want. That's it. If you guys haven't read Goatman, and you can, like Pete just said, Midnight Delivery is on Comixology. Go not only to support Tim, but go read a fun book while you're at it. What else are you doing right now?
Assuming that they're listening to us talk about shit for 2 hours.
Yes.
Right, but what I'm saying is, what other book are you? I know everyone has a back pile. I know I do. But still, if you wanna support something, why not start with Timmy?
Sure, I will say, because I was admittedly it didn't happen this week because of Resident Evil 3 came out, so more on that later. But I was thinking, maybe in this time off, like I'll read some backlog stuff or whatever to talk about that on the show, but I didn't do it this week. But I will say there is something, like, as much as obviously we're all missing the comics right now, and but because us three specifically, because we have the show, we have never really been able to have a break, right? We're always reading the books, so we're up to date for the show. There is something kind of nice. The silver lining to this is that in a month, say, when the books come back, I think we'll appreciate the time off and kind of love books again a little bit because we've had a little bit of absence.
What you're saying is you'll feel like you did after Convergence.
Yeah?
No, because after Convergence, I just didn't come back. It's a bad example.
Well, then for you, when you came back, it was Rebirth, and
sure,
it came back
yes.
with a vengeance.
Okay, sure, yes, okay.
We got the Starfire book after Convergence, right? That's when DCU started.
Hell yeah.
So and Bizarro.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hold on to some of these. If we do recommendations.
I might have to reread Starfire this time.
Me too.
I just bought a stack of like 10 books because they were dirt cheap, and I don't know when I'm going to read them, but I mean, I've got like at least a month off work, so I mean, they might get read.
You have time, yeah. So
exactly.
Yeah. I had to recommend books, like actual books, to my mother-in-law because she's been so bored because she's been off of work too because we both work for the schools out here, and so I had to dig through my stuff for stuff that she might like, and then I realized I was like, I have a very narrow taste preference when it comes to actual books. It's like techno thrillers and nonfiction. Like there's no in between. Like I'm not a horror guy.
I read a lot of sci-fi and fantasy, and then like nonfiction stuff, like a lot of history books, which is weird. But I literally just finished last night a book called The Poppy War, which is kind of set in like an alternate world an alternate version of China. It's very heavily inspired by like a Chinese-Japanese war, and it's it's got like some like magic and gods and stuff, but it's all through this drug use perspective. It's
kind of
really
like
good.
Brave New World. If you were forced to read that in high school.
I never did. No.
Oh yeah, so they have like parties where they dissolve their pills into ice cream, and then just go get zonked out. You know.
It's all about how like in the real world history, the opium was a real problem for the Chinese, and it was like a huge weakness for them in that war.
Yep.
And this kind of takes it and channels it into a link to the gods, like a literal when they're high, they visit like a spiritual plane and
chasing the dragon, right? Like,
exactly, yeah. But it was really good.
That's good.
I need to get the second soon.
Who's the author on that one?
I want to say her name is R.F. Kwang, I think, if I'm remembering right.
There you go. A book recommendation by Connor.
Yeah, just before we get into questions, just sort of tangential stuff in relation to what's going on. Just looking at Marvel and I think movies, just all things that are being delayed because of everything. Obviously, Black Widow got delayed indefinitely before. Now it's got a date. Basically, what they've done is that all the Marvel slots that they had have all just shifted back one. So now Black Widow's going to be in November, which was originally Eternals' date.
November 6th.
Eternals is now in February's date. I don't know what movie that was before. I can't remember.
Does that make this the only year in a long time with only one Marvel movie?
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
The last time was the first Avengers in 2012.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay. Did I not get
because
the
first time we had two was it?
The first time
Cap.
Yeah, it was Cap and Thor was the first time there was two. No, that's not technically true because Iron Man and the Incredible Hulk was the same year.
Yeah, that's true too.
But believe it or not, 2009 is the only year since the MCU started where there was a year skipped. That's the only year that was taken off since it started.
Crazy. Yeah. That said, so my wife does not like Scarlett Johansson. She just does not like her. And so it's very hard for her to deal with Black Widow. And we got married on May 7th, which is typically Marvel weekend. So the last movie I saw before I was married was Avengers. So that's real cool. So every, for the last couple of years, our anniversary weekend, we go see the Marvel movie. Well, now that's moved, right? Yeah. She was like, oh, that's fine. Scarlett Johansson, Black Widow, whatever. Well, the weekend it moved to is her birthday weekend. It's like, oh, look, either you're spending one of your big dates with Scarlett Johansson. That's just what
I mean. On the bright side, there's also Florence Pugh.
Yeah, well, again, and the sheriff, who she kind of likes from Stranger Things.
Yeah, David Harbour.
David Harbour. So it'll be fine. It's just she really doesn't like Scarlett Johansson. She's on the banned list. Honestly, that's why when a couple weeks ago when we were putting 4 actresses that you really love, I had to leave her off the list because I didn't want to deal with the wrath.
I feel like I'd be worried if I was her at your wedding. If Avengers just came out, I'd be really worried that when asked if to say I do, if instead you would say Assemble instead.
No, however, I did parody the Green Lantern Oath in my vows, which she didn't know was coming. And she got it because she thought I was gonna full go. And she had to check my hand to make sure I wasn't wearing my GL that came out with Blackest Night. That said, I did have my foam Mjolnir that we took pictures with. So yeah, of course. It was a good time.
Yeah, because one of the thing with the movies is that I was kind of joking just the other day that I can't remember what movie got pushed, but it was something in May, and it was like, okay, basically the next thing to get pushed now is like I think the end of June, and I think Candyman just got pushed to September, which was early June. Mm-hmm. We're basically at the point now where
Top Gun's got pushed as well.
Top Gun got pushed as well.
November.
Yeah, so there's basically nothing until July now, big movie wise, that's actually scheduled now. Everything's been pushed.
What's coming out in July?
Tenet.
Yep. That's staying put for now. But we talked about this, I think on the movie show that we did last week, that if it gets pushed, it's coming out in theaters. Nolan will.
There's
no way it's coming to home.
Yeah, there's
never do that.
New Mutants got pushed again. I'm like,
which
what are these plots? God damn it!
Remind me after this to talk about Dark Phoenix for a second.
Oh yeah, we get to movies. Yeah, we get about Dark Phoenix.
Artemis Fowl they're putting that show on Disney Plus, so they're showing they're willing to do it.
Which is funny. That means that Artemis Fowl is less of a priority to them than the New Mutants.
Yes.
Paul Branagh. And honestly, I love those books as a kid. And they it seems like they lost the spirit a little bit. Because from anyone's not familiar, Artemis Fowl is a Bond villain. His whole thing is he wants to rob the fairies, and steal all their gold. Like, he's a terrible person.
He's the bad guy, and it's the fairy of Leprechaun. I only read the first book because
and it's the fairy basically trying to stop him being so terrible over the course of a handful of books, and he's still terrible. But that's the point.
We got that trailer with the last movie we saw, and it was probably Onward. And I was just like, this does not feel like Artemis Fowl, the book that I read. Granted, it's been a very long time. I got the same vibes I did from Percy Jackson, which those books, while very kiddish, handle Greek mythology super, super well. So when that first movie came out and that trailer just did not seem to match the tone, it was rough times. And I'm getting that same vibe from Artemis Fowl, so not surprised that's going straight to Plus.
Percy Jackson only existed to cash in Harry Potter's popularity.
That's not true. Maybe as a movie. But
that's what I mean. I'm not talking about the books. I'm talking about the movie. The movie only exists to cash in those movies.
Because I was going to say, funnily enough, the books were written by Rick Riordan because his son or daughter was dyslexic, and he had created a reason why is that in order to read ancient Greek, dyslexia actually helps you. So he wrote that into the characters.
It was like so the idea of Percy Jackson is they're all like sons or daughters of a god,
right?
Like one of their parents is a god,
so they're all demigods.
Yeah, and one of the really common traits is the dyslexia,
right? And it helps you read the ancient Greek better and whatnot. And also he was a English teacher, I think, and this allowed him to break down the Greek myths in a way that you could teach it to kids of that age. Yeah. So even as someone that was that familiar, it would add spins onto it. And then he did it with. I still haven't read the Norse ones because I
did some Egyptian ones as well, right?
And Egyptian as well. So
yeah,
but
I only read the Greek ones.
Yeah, that's why I was super let down by the by the adaptation. But again, that's what Artemis Fowl feels like. So good for Disney for knowing when to take an L and just throwing it on there.
Yeah. I think the kids, a lot of them had ADHD as well, and that was kind of built into the battle instincts, essentially.
Right? I was not expecting such a conversation on Percy Jackson and Artemis Fowl on the show,
but were solid.
Here we are.
Yeah.
So let's get into some questions then. There's a mix of stuff in here. Some of it's DC or comics related, and some of it isn't, and just kind of weird and wacky. Mix of stuff. A couple of these are from last week as well that I kind of just held off because we had a lot to talk about last week, unlike this week, where there's no books except one Patreon book that I'll be doing later. So some of the names may pop back up because I've got them into two batches because of different weeks. So if the same name pops up, just go with it. But at Mr. Greed, you're scheduled to get executed tomorrow night. What are you eating as your last meal? Matt, go.
Okay. So, I mean, do I do the cheat answer where I make it a never-ending thing so they can't execute me as long as I'm eating? Or do I have to pick a hard, fast thing?
Nah, one last meal, gone.
Okay. So if that's the case, I'm definitely going with breakfast. And I'm probably going to get my black bear breakfast, which consists of a 3 to 4 egg hobo omelet, which has everything in it. So we're talking ham, onions, what else is in there? Spinach, all that cheese, hash browns, a big-ass pancake, biscuits and gravy, and a side of toast. I'm going out with carbs. Oh, that's so good. I had a friend tell me one time when we went to breakfast before a con, he's like, you're not going to eat all that. Smash cut to, I can't believe you ate the whole thing. I was like, yeah, bro, I don't play around. It was a very Ron Swanson moment where, they're like, that feeds a family of 12. I know what I'm about, son.
Connor?
I'd probably go with a good roast dinner. Lamb and beef as the meats, probably. Roast potatoes, obviously mashed potatoes, Yorkshire puddings. Carrots, broccoli, swede, the whole shebang. Some good thick gravy. Can't go wrong.
A roast is a good idea. I like a good carvery, especially with the unlimited mashed potato and gravy. But
it's always nice.
Yeah,
I felt that was a really, really English answer to go. Sunday roast.
It's basically just the best version of meat and potatoes, right? That's basically what it is.
Yeah, right. It is.
So, and you can't fault that.
Parsnip. I forgot. Yeah, honey roast parsnips. Got to have those on there as well.
Sure. I feel like I kind of shift a lot because I gave up beef a while ago, so a lot of my old timers have kind of went.
Why give up beef?
To be healthier, just roll with me, all right?
Just eat a leaner cut.
There's nothing inherently unhealthy about beef.
Yeah.
Look,
I mean, if they're eating a ribeye steak versus a tenderloin, yeah, because there's more fat. So if you're trying to cut fat content, right? But if you just want the straight protein, you can. I mean, a New York strip steak, boom.
I regret mentioning it because I know what you two are like, right? Forget it. Just go on. So I feel like there's something about fried rice that I just can't deny. So I like fried rice with probably a chicken katsu curry. I'll go Japanese with this. I think nice sweet curry sauce with the crispy chicken. Yeah, nice and simple.
I've only ever had Hawaiian chicken katsu because Hawaii is a melting pot of all the different cultures. So there's different spins, but their katsu sauce, I don't think it's a curry, but it's a slightly spicy barbecue sauce that's sweet and spicy. Oh, it's so good. So hard to fault you there. Okay, you have to add a dessert to this now.
I'm good. I don't really eat desserts at all. So.
He's a weirdo. I mean, I mean, hell, just like some warm chocolate cake with some nice cream. You know, not ice cream, like just some whipped cream. Was great. But alternatively, again, like a sundae. I mean, as long as there's cream with a sweet thing, I'm quite happy. I'm good.
Yeah, mine's probably a toss up between like the best dessert I've ever had was at Disney World, and it was this wild berry cobbler with a honey lemon crust with blackberry ice cream thrown on top, and it was warm and cold, which is one of my favorite things. But like that's very specific. So let's say they can't get that. Probably a key lime pie. That's probably my favorite.
Okay.
It's just which came out of a necessity because nobody else likes key lime pie. So I know if I buy it, it's mine because no one else is going to touch it. So yeah.
Yeah.
Connor doesn't eat sweets.
I just don't have a sweet tooth at all.
Okay.
I honestly could not tell you the last time I ate a dessert.
Okay, so then sub that for an after dinner drink.
Well, I'd just take some sort of whiskey, but it would depend on my mood on the day as to what whiskey I requested.
Of course.
There's not one whiskey like this is the last one I get to drink. This is what I'm going out on.
Well, I mean, are we talking availability or just personal preference?
No.
Because if it's just any whiskey in the world that I've never had, then I'm going to go for something that I can afford and can't get. Whereas, if you ask me personal preference right now, if I was reaching for something, it would be different to what I would reach for tomorrow. So it would really depend on the day.
Basically, he has too much booze that he likes that he can't pick a favorite.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Shut up.
He can pick a favorite meal, which in theory most people eat a lot of different types of food, but he can't pick a favorite booze.
Do you know what it is? Because I narrowed it down. It's like it's a whiskey of some sort. Probably even a Scotch. I can probably narrow. Well, Scotch or Japanese, but Japanese is basically Scotch. It's one of those things. In terms of whiskey, Japanese whiskey is done in the Scotch style. So it's and it was pioneered by someone who lived in Scotland and came back over to Japan and kind of transferred all those.
You're welcome, Japan.
Yeah.
Although they are damn fine.
Well, and then you guys took Chinese food and made it better, right?
That's true.
So
that's true.
Like this is what's so cool about blending of cultures, right? They come places and
India
take a little bit with it.
There are multiple curries that are as English or as British as it gets, depending on which curry you choose.
Yeah, the most popular curry in the UK is chicken tikka masala, and it was invented in Glasgow. So
yeah, and the Balti, which is another really big popular one, is from just like by Birmingham way, and again they fit at home in. You could go to any Indian restaurant in the UK, and they will have those two very British curries alongside the menu in the regular curry section, not in because a lot of Indian places will also have like the English section where you can order a steak if you really don't want a curry, but it's just weird.
Right. But why? Yeah, at that point.
Yeah, I don't know why you go there.
I'm pretty sure most of the Chinese places I get takeaway from, the Western section they call it, is literally just an omelette. It's like everything, it's just all Chinese food, but then it's like the omelette.
I'm not talking about takeaways. I'm talking about if you go in to sit in an Indian place, they will have an English section, which will be like fries, steak, a burger. Like,
that's always my point is why, yeah, if you're going to get Indian, why is that on there? Like, I get they want to, you know,
I
provide
it's
for customers.
People who get dragged along with a group who don't
Yeah.
actually like curry. Or
Yeah, well,
Indian food,
so
it's
like,
they're gonna have something.
I don't do sushi, right? Because I'm not a big fish fan, or seafood in general. So like when, if we go to a place where the people are getting sushi, if they don't have a chicken teriyaki bowl, I'm kind of screwed. 'Cause what else am I gonna eat?
I've never
You
had
know?
sushi in my life.
Yeah, I don't. Granted, of the people I know that like it, love it. Like, there's kind of no in between. Like, my mother-in-law and her boyfriend go to up until all of the craziness happened, they would go once a week and get it because that's how much they love sushi. But yeah, me, not so much.
Yeah, I never had sushi. I mean, I eat a lot of whitefish because that's really common in the UK.
Right.
But
Well, at that point, it's fried, right? So you're kind of like, or do they have like the fillets?
Great fillets, yeah.
Both. I mean,
Yeah.
you can do whatever. Like we're talking about like cod haddock, mackerel.
But those are all what I associate with fried food because of from our perspective, that's English cuisine.
They are very commonly fried if you go to a like a chip
Chippy,
shop.
right?
But if you just go to like the supermarket, they will have just the fish there, and you can do what you want with it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
They'll have a fish counter usually.
You can
any
slap
reasonably
someone
sized.
in the face with it for self-defense if you want, but it's there. You can just get the
I've
fish.
definitely slapped someone with a fish that I bought at a supermarket before.
Of course you have. Of course you have. I was given advice, self-defense advice on my stream, and I said the best weapon for self-defense is a dead fish. So
Yeah.
They run right away.
they do.
Well, yeah.
You
Well,
don't need to
because
hit them that hard. They're like, what the hell's going on? This is a fish. Get out of here.
yeah, I suddenly found myself in a cartoon.
Anyway, let's move on to some other questions, so that one went places. So we got a few from Atlas of Goose 85. Spread it over 2 weeks actually, I think. So first of all, this is DC related. Which Crisis is your favourite? Which would be the least favourite? So are we all going to say Infinite for best?
Yeah, that's the one that brought us here, right?
Pretty much.
That's
I mean,
my era. So
I actually really like Identity Crisis, but it's not really a crisis in the crisis sense.
I mean, yeah, it's a better Crisis than Heroes in Crisis.
I was going to say that. I was
Yes.
thinking, what's my least favorite Crisis? And then I
Yeah.
went, oh yeah, Heroes in Crisis is technically.
You know
a crisis.
what? Does 0 Hour count as a Crisis? I'm not that big on that.
I mean, it does say in the
I guess
title,
it's
it says
fine.
0 Hour Crisis in Time, so
right.
I mean,
right. I mean, that one I'm not too big on.
If we're going strictly with things with the Crisis in the probably Final Crisis. I mean, I don't hate it. It's not bad. I'd still happily read it again.
I like the idea. I just don't like the execution. Like, I don't like that his Batman dead ends at Final Crisis and then picks up. You know, like there are parts of it I don't like, but as a full story and what it means for Darkseid and the Fifth World, and it's fine. Also, Countdown, not good.
But
that's not a crisis though.
That's the lead into Infinite, so doesn't really count.
I mean, if we're counting Heroes in Crisis, then that's the worst one. But if we aren't, then yeah. If we're only counting the big four, which is Crisis, Infinite, Final, wait, big three, the big three, not big four. Well, Identity.
The fourth one is coming shortly.
I think Identity is what I usually think of as the fourth, but I mean, we're kind of
It's Identity is such a weird one where it's such a different kind of crisis, but is still regarded as a crisis.
Mm-hmm.
You know what tripped me out this week was Brad Meltzer put up a picture of his son getting accepted to Michigan, which is the school he went to. And it tripped me out that guy has a son. I remember him talking about his son around that time, playing with his superhero action figures and whatnot.
And now he's like a doctor.
And now his son's, now his son's going to college, and it blows my mind. Like, to me, Brad Meltzer's still the same guy. And, and when you open up Identity Crisis, and on the back panel, there's that picture of him, like casually leaning on the tree. But no, I mean, he's aged since then.
No, this is the problem with authors' headshots, because typically authors hate doing headshots as a rule. Like, it's just something that they begrudgingly do once a decade because they feel like they're obligated to. But they get out; they're always outdated because they hate doing them, and so you have such a warped image of them in your head, unless you follow them on Twitter now.
For the longest time, I thought Wizard was using a picture of Michael Chiklis for buying Michael Bendis. Because that picture that they used, he looked so much like Michael Chiklis, and I was like, "Oh, they're the same guy." And now, I mean, he's lost some because he was sick. He's lost some weight. He looks like Michael Chiklis' younger brother, you know.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, it's.
Okay, here's a question for the same person. Probably discussed at some point, but which characters outside of DC would you be interested in John's writing? We may have talked about this at some point. I don't remember though.
I don't remember if we have. Honestly, it's a hard question to answer because a lot of what I like about John's is how much he cares about what he's writing, and the reason his Green Lantern is so good, for example, is that he had such a love of Green Lantern and the DC cosmos that he's like, no, this is what I'm going to make. I mean, it's hard to go, well, him applying that without maybe that passion. I mean,
assuming he has the passion, like, there's very few Marvel characters that I don't think he'd work with. The obvious ones would be Cap, maybe X-Men, maybe Spider-Man. Like, I wouldn't want him on, say, Daredevil, but that's kind of because I don't think of Johns as a good Batman writer, so I wouldn't put him on Daredevil or those types of characters. But ultimately, I mean, I'd probably be into whatever. Yeah. Like, I don't have any.
No, Iron Man. I don't care about Iron Man as a comic character that much. I love Robert Downey Jr.'s performance in the movies, right? But I've never connected to him. But you give Johns that ability to rewrite some of the crazier things that have happened. Like, I don't know if you guys are up to date with Avengers, but there's this in the last one they had this big reveal about his origin, and I feel like Johns, as much as I love Aaron, I feel like Johns can massage that retcon.
What's so weird is that's going around in Avengers, and at the same time, I believe the Iron Man book, he is like a clone
or something.
Sort of thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the hell's going on in that book.
So yeah, or even I like to see what with Immortal Hulk being like a completely atypical Hulk book. I wonder what a Johns Hulk book would be like. Just like what he would do with Banner, because it's he loves Firestorm, right? And with what they're doing with Immortal Hulk, it's similar. All the different personas are vying. Yeah. That I wonder what he would do with Hulk.
Yeah, maybe. Basically, truth is, whatever he wants to do, anything he's passionate about.
Yeah,
go for it.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm happy to keep him locked up at DC forever. I mean, if that's a possibility.
And he might be. We haven't heard from him in a while.
Yeah. Final.
So John, Jeff, if you're okay, let us know, bud.
Final question from Melissa of Goose 85: Can Connor say something nice about Bendis?
No.
There you go.
No. If I'm being genuine, as a writer, probably not. But I mean, as a person, sure. I mean, he posts a lot of like Tumblr blog lists of stuff, and seems like a good dude overall. I've got no problem with him.
Okay.
If it's not for him, we don't get into the Spider-Verse, which we all loved, right?
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, I've got no problem with him as a person, and whenever he writes stuff about the comics industry, which he does every so often, whenever he does this, they're really good reads in that sense. But I mean, I just don't enjoy his stories. It's a similar thing to I think a lot of people feel about maybe Grant Morrison, in that they hate his stories because he just kind of goes off on one. But if you read his book, Super Gods, the way he just talks about the industry and the history of it is something completely different. I think a lot of people.
Yeah, I had a love-hate with him until I heard him on Kevin Smith's Batman on Batman, where he just starts going off on what superheroes mean to him, and we have the famous Scorpion story, the Scorpion assassins, and all that. But like, just to hear him nerd out over Wonder Woman, and like that's where his idea came from for the Earth One book.
Yeah,
it made me less mad that they stole that from Rucka, right?
It makes me like appreciate even the stories that I don't enjoy as much. I can appreciate his idea and his enthusiasm and passion. I feel like with Bendis, I don't like his writing at all, but I think he's not coming from a place of malice or anything like that. He's not out to get me. He's just he cares about his ideas and he's trying. It's just not working for me.
I feel they're both at the idea that no one can rein them in because they're such a force, right? Like not necessarily, but like I'm not a big fan of full Morrison, right? And I know Connor's not a big fan of full Bendis, but I'll take a like Claus, which gets pretty weird with Morrison, right? Yeah. But it's still a pretty straightforward story about the origin of Santa Claus, So yeah, I don't know. That's a weird one.
As you do. From @Tufty _W23 and
oh no,
yeah,
I know that name.
Yeah, you know that name. Which right now, actually, his Twitter name is James the Unsanctioned Buffoon. I don't know where that changed or where it came from, but whatever.
Been that for a while, I think.
Because he is.
Here's his question, which he's just been a troll at this point. But what's the best adaptation of Batman, and why is it Batman Forever?
Because neon.
Because James, you were dropped in your head repeatedly as a child, and it is misshapen for that reason, and it has left some serious brain damage.
I'm not surprised he's not saying Batman 66. Like, that's what James.
I'm almost certain that's his second favorite.
Yeah,
yes.
Like I just knowing him as long as we've known him now, I'm always surprised when he brings up Forever. And now I know it's like a joke answer, but like his sensibilities is Batman 66. So
it's boiling acid. That's that movie. Just in case anyone's
that said, that one is my favorite of those movies, of the pre-Nolan.
Oh, the four.
Batmans.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face. He's not Two-Face, but whatever he does, I'm there for, because it's Tommy Lee Jones like you've never seen him before, right?
You're not wrong.
Can I just say I loved it about Batman Forever how he gets the scarring only in one half of his face. It's because he holds up a file. He holds up a bit of paper as the axe is hitting him in the face.
Also, as a kid, I thought his secret lair that was two halves, and you have Drew Barrymore as Sugar and Debbie Mazar as Spice. I was like, that's so cool. Man, Two-Face is the best.
Oh,
and then I tried to understand who Two-Face is via reading comics. I was like, oh, they missed it hard.
And yet you're still back around to Two-Face is the best.
Right.
Apparently so.
Clearly, the important things were translated because
they were.
You came out with the right opinion.
Yeah. Okay, couple of things about Natty Knuckles on Twitter. One, I did ask for people to send in some of their favourite moments. A couple of people did mention one. He was one of them. Mentioned that one of his favourites is from episode 1. At the 2-minute mark, and I watched this to see what it was like. At the 2-minute mark, apparently I get mad at Connor because his phone goes off in the very first episode of the show. And what's funny about it is Connor immediately gets defensive as soon as it goes off, because it's really noticeable. It's like do, and he just goes, "I turned it off," and he starts yelling that he turned it off, and then I threatened.
My phone actually does this every so often, where it turns itself off of silent. It's led to some very awkward situations at work, for example, where it will just start ringing, and I'm like, I know you were on bloody silent. I do not take this off silent at all. It just occasionally just rings, and I'm like, what are you doing?
That was the first time. I mean, I assume it's the first time, unless I somehow fit one of these in the first 2 minutes. That had to be the first time that I threatened to murder Connor on the podcast. But
at least on this podcast.
At least on this podcast, yes. But some questions from the same person as well. One question in particular. Basically, if each of the main members of the Justice League got a 12-issue series, which creative teams would we want on like each person's book? Like if we, and
when we're saying the main, are we doing like the 3, the 7?
I would because 3 would be the Trinity, so it has to be at least 5, I'd assume, if not the full 7. You have to pick one for everyone, because I feel like Superman, Batman, like they get tons of books anyway. It's fine.
Well, we all know my answer for Wonder Woman, so.
Is this Rocky and Evil? Yeah, Evilly.
Yeah. The team that brought us issue 8.
Of course, yes. Why? Who else would it be? No. I don't know. I would go, because I feel like for me, we already had the Superman Wade book, right? We had that. That was Birthright.
Yeah, Birthright.
That already exists.
My favorite book of all time.
There you go. Batman's had tons of great minis and maxi series. He doesn't need any more. But it is true that some of the other characters, Flash, Green Lantern, Martian Manhunter, like these characters don't have that 112-issue book you can recommend as a standalone thing for the most part. They have runs that are really good, and you say, "Hey, read this run because it's great." Matt, you might. There we go.
We could hear it going just for like half a second before. I was like, no, he's not going to stop in time.
Yeah. So you're telling me Flash Year 1's not, must read?
This might shock you, Matt, but yes, I am indeed saying that. Yes.
You know what? After seeing what Venditti did with Hawkman, I want to see what he would do with Martian Manhunter.
Okay. All right.
Because you could still work in the current, like, let's say, G5's going ahead and Wonder Woman appears first. You could play with the Martian Manhunter came here in the 40s or 50s and has been laying low until the rest of the superheroes start. You know what I mean?
That would be kind of fun. Him being just being like a PI.
Yeah.
Like to just do a noir story before any superheroes are out.
Yeah. So he really has the incentive to stay guarded and not show his true form, and you could even tie it to his origin like Orlando tried to do in the book that I couldn't finish.
I think if I'm going to pick any Justice League member to get the Garrett's Tom King 12-issue treatment, it would be Martian Manhunter. I think Flash, I'd want fun, so I'd go with Tom Taylor, and I don't pick a good artist to go with that.
Let's go with Sampier. I mean, Sampier was great on Suicide Squad last time, and I think they've done Flash before.
Green Lantern. Well, I assume we're talking about Hal. If we're talking about the big seven, I guess we're talking about Hal.
I mean, you could probably make an argument for John. Really, as well.
Who do I want as a Jon Stewart book? You kind of want a no nonsense writer. So that's kind of John in a nutshell. Actually, I wouldn't mind King and Garrett's, like, because then you could tie in the Marine.
As a vet, and
then him coming back as an architect, like, not to paint them into that box, but I think they could, because when you think about it, outside of what was the planet that he was like asleep on the job that got destroyed, that haunts him still. Like, outside of that, he's relatively trauma free. So if you want a story about a vet adapting to life, I think Jon Stewart.
Give me Tamaki and Joel Jones on Hot Girl. Assuming she's one of the seven. I'm going with the animated series lineup here for the sake of.
Why would she be one of the seven?
Yeah,
I mean, sure.
Well, and then you also look at the current or the.
You've kind of just thrown Aquaman under the bus, but whatever.
That's fine.
Okay, sure, but okay. Aquaman.
I have my Aquaman team. I can recommend the Kelly Sue stuff right now.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean? Like
but I mean, all the characters have things we can recommend. I think it's just the definitive 12-issue series.
Right.
Aquaman. I mean, I guess you'd go with. I don't know.
What sort of
you know what?
I have no idea who I'd pick for Aquaman.
You know what? This is a dream listing, right? I don't have to pick someone that's currently working at
No, of course
DC.
not.
So give me a Jason Aaron Aquaman.
Sure.
I want to see what he does there. Like, does he go more towards the Earth life? Does he go back to Atlantis? Like, how's he balancing the Mara stuff?
Basically, you want Thor, but with Aquaman.
Not necessarily, because there's other stuff that I like from Aaron, like think Southern Bastards with Aquaman.
Joe,
I get it. It was more just when you were talking about the stuff with Atlantis. You're playing the other world politics as well. It kind of felt very Thor.
This is more of a taste thing, admittedly, but I would maybe go away from Jason Aaron on Aquaman, and I'd go more to the aqua horror of it, and I'd get Fraser Irving to do the art for it. 12 issues of Fraser Irving art underwater. Yeah, writer I'm not sure, but that's what I'm seeing him in these dark spaces underwater with this beautiful art.
Also Albuquerque too, with the horror aspect.
Who could tell a great 12-issue Green Lantern story? Morrison.
Shut up, mate. Do you?
Yeah, you could, but I'm not going to read it. I don't care if the shirt's on there or not. It's too weird for me. Thanks.
Dear.
But no. Who is a Flash? Who do I go for?
If it's Kyle Rayner, Green Lantern, we not mentioned him yet. Jodie Hauser, 12 issues of Kyle Rayner.
Because it's never going to be Kyle Rayner.
Shut up! It could be Kyle Rayner. I feel it could be Jessica then. That's that with Jodie Hauser.
That's fine by me too.
Yeah. There you go. That's what picks. All right, let's move on. Thanks. So if I go over to the emails here quickly, from Matt Barry. Not Matt Berry, just in case anyone was confused.
Honestly, it was the first thing that came to my head as well when you said
Me too, because we just talked about him, and I was like, wow, word gets out.
I asked a few here. I'll ask one or two of these. So I'll do the more serious one first. What non-comic creator would you like to see become a comic creator like J.J. Abrams did with his son in his Superman series? I don't know if I think this has kind of come up before, and I have no real answer, to be honest.
I'm thinking from TV, like I want to see what the Duffer Brothers could do. Like give them, you know, right. So with comics, they can kind of do what they want. They're not limited to budget. So like their idea for Stranger Things with Montauk, I'd like to see their Montauk comic.
It's kind of weird because I feel like people who I think are good at TV, I'd rather keep making TV, and people who are good at comics, I want them to keep making comics. People who are good at movies, I want to keep making movies. You know, I don't really want them to change.
I think for a long time, I like how the go-to thing there was J.J. Abrams, just because it was the more recent example. But obviously, the big traditional answer to this question was Joss Whedon.
Yes.
Right.
Who obviously moved from TV and did his Astonishing X-Men.
Yeah, which is the notable one, because it's one thing when he did a little bit of Buffy or Angel, because okay, that's a continuation of his things.
That's his story. Yeah.
But it was he got an X-Men book for 24 issues.
One of my favorite X-Men stories.
Yeah, and no, it is great. And that new show that he is still, I think, working on. We haven't heard that in a long time. The HBO one, like Victorian superpowers, whatever it was. That was originally a comic, but it was announced as a comic. It was at San Diego years ago, 3 or 4 years ago now, and it was announced like it had like concept art and everything. It was like, no, this is a thing. And then about a year later, it's like this is a TV show now instead.
Yeah, it's called The Nevers, by the way.
That's it. Thank you.
Gotcha.
The Nevers.
A Taika Waititi comic. I don't know what it's about, but I want it. Also, the person that was we had all agreed we're not doing April Fools this year. So the person that got me to click on Taika walking from Love and Thunder, come find me. I got a fist for you.
That actually neatly sends into the more jokey question that Matt sent, which is, which of the hosts would win a free-for-all fight to the death if, was a handicap here, if Matt was only able to use one arm?
That takes a lot of my power because I have a lot of holds. I'm a submission type.
Yes. I love the assumption that Matt would obviously win if there's no handicap.
To be fair, Matt is the only one of us who actively does any sort of working out.
I mean, I've also taken jiu-jitsu. I wrestled in high school.
I did a little bit of kung fu in high school.
Okay.
Granted,
I don't know if I could catch Connor because he's spindly.
I can just wriggle out things.
Yeah. But yeah, no. I can still use my feet. So I am pretty sure I could just work. I wonder if I could work a Kimura. Because here's the thing, I don't want to murder anybody. I just want to let them know that, that I could have, but I chose not to.
It depends. Are we allowed weapons?
Oh, if we're allowed weapons, you guys are screwed. It's I could swing a stick or a hammer with one hand. An axe.
I mean, as long as I get to kill Connor before Matt kills me, I think I'm satisfied. I'm happy with that as a performance.
Like you think you could.
See, that's the money. This is the one I take bets on. I want to see what they're.
Fairly sure that's illegal, but I mean, we can give it a try.
Well, it's like I took Kung Fu in high school.
I did take Kung Fu in high school.
As if that matters.
Yeah. It may matter. Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. I've never been in a fight in my goddamn life. I'm not intending to start now. I'm a civilized individual.
I might be able to one-arm suplex Connor. I might. Depending how much he weighs. Because when my little brother was here, I had to remind him that as strong as he gets from work, I can still pick him up with no problem, put him over my shoulder. And yeah. So,
I have no idea.
And that was one-handed.
Connor's easy to kill. You just wait for the hiccup fit to take him. He'll get distracted for a second, then you can strike.
I've been in exactly one fight in my life.
Yeah.
And it went pretty well.
That's good.
It went pretty well.
I mean, the guy punched me, and then I punched him back and knocked his tooth out. And that was it. That
said, I've been in more altercations than actual fights.
Oh, sure.
Because they tend not to go that way, and that's not on me. That's my, let's talk this through before something bad happens. I'm 5'7" on a good day. I'm not actually that intimidating. But don't misunderstand that. I can still, if need be.
Now I've just got a visual in my head.
People are more intense because they feel like they've got to make up for it.
Yeah. A little bit.
I know a guy who's 5'6", who it wasn't like scrawny or anything like that. He was just short, right?
Yeah.
And like 2 years after finishing school, it's like no, he's a bouncer now, and everyone's terrified of him.
Yeah,
because he's just like
you. Also, being shorter, you end up having more leverage on people because lower man wins. Yeah, exactly. That's why I relate to Puck on Alpha Flight so much, right?
But now I've just got a visual. I've just got a visual in my head now, though, of holding Matt back with my hand on his head, and I'm trying to swing at me and not being able to reach. There's a comedy skit in here somewhere. Yep. Anyway,
I almost broke that down like Dwight. No, see, I would grab your arm, break it to the elbow, put it behind your back, and then you'd be done.
Let the joke land, man. Just let the joke land. It's fine. We can move on with the list. All right. From Emil Kildy on the emails. Gave us a memorable moment. Didn't mention what episode this was already, but it just says memorable moment for the podcast was when Pete did an impression of Darkseid as Tommy Wiseau from The Room. I was squatting while listening and damn near fell and snapped my neck. I'll take points for that.
Oh shit! Don't listen to funny things while you squat, man. Music exists. Come on.
I think better advice: just don't bother squatting.
Well, I mean, no, but squatting is the best lift you can do for full body. It sucks, and you hate yourself the next day, but sense of accomplishment. So good on you for squatting. However, I learned that lesson the hard way when I started working out again because I mostly listen to podcasts. Music's the way to go for that. Because again, you'll fall and almost break your neck.
Okay, so here's the question that he sent. No. The question will probably cause a lot of discussion, intrigue, anger, and will likely leave scars in your friendship and will never quite heal. Here we go. What is the best movie snack? Factors to consider: deliciousness, noise, messiness, smell, and satiety. Satiety? Is that the word I'm saying? Right? Yeah.
Like, how much does it leave you satisfied?
There you go.
I'll eat popcorn until I get sick.
The real answer. I'm still reading the question.
Sorry.
The real answer, by the way, is peanut butter cups. They are ahead in every category except perhaps messiness. Eating chocolate in the dark makes me a dirty boy. That was very, very specifically worded.
Popcorn. I mean, I can't eat chocolate anyway, so that's out the window.
We can't get large popcorn because I'll just keep eating it until it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
That's my problem as well.
I'm like a dog. Like
it's just empty air. So it will just keep going until I.
And then with the butter topping, I end up feeling kind of gross for the rest of the day, but I can't help myself. So popcorn, but I like to add caramel M&Ms into it, so you get the salty with the sweet.
That sounds pretty good.
Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I like popcorn, but I never get salty popcorn. I hate salty popcorn. But
some popcorn's all right. I mean, I tend to get sweet if I've got the choice. But I mean, hey, if you hand me some sour popcorn, I'm gonna enjoy it.
I just don't like anything that I can noticeably taste salt in. Basically.
So you don't eat, as you would call them, crisps. You're not a crisps guy.
I eat some crisps, but I don't eat the heavy salty flavors.
Presumably not ready salted or salt and vinegar, which are the two salt heavy flavors.
Yeah, I hate those.
I love salt and vinegar chips.
Yeah. Anyway, so my two go-tos are, I mean, I like M&Ms, specifically crispy M&Ms are my favorite. I mean, I tried that. They've got a new salty caramel flavor, and those were quite nice, but not as good as crispy. I also like chili's flavored peanuts. Really good snack. I dig those.
My peanuts of choice tend to be the honey roast ones.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I went through an era where I would bring a bag of sunflower seeds and bring a bag to split them into because I'm not a savage. Those are always pretty good. Over the stuff like peanuts. Yeah, popcorn. It's there.
There's a reason that every movie theater sells popcorn.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically a case of, like, if I want something that's a bit more, I mean, not savory is not the right word, but nuts are sort of not in any of the other categories. And then if I want something chocolate, it'll be crispy M&Ms or whatever. And if I'm in the occasion where I want something a bit more sort of sweet, I'll go with some Skittles for something a bit fruitier flavor. But I mean,
I used to sneak in everlasting gobstoppers, which are like little tiny jawbreakers. and throw them into my soda, and it would make my soda taste like different stuff. Man, those back in the days with kids were you didn't care about what you ate as much as you do now.
Oh yeah, that sounds like just a sugar overload.
Yeah, sugar rush.
That feels like you're just basically taunting diabetes. You're just like, come at me. Like, come at me.
Yeah, let's go. But yeah, no. So I don't know. It tends to be like chocolatey, salty. Now my wife's a big peanut butter cup, so that's her go-to. Like
I like peanut butter cups. I don't tend to eat them when I'm watching movies though.
Yeah, no. Though that's just her thing. We'll bring those in. We're pretty bad smuggling those kind of snacks in, but we always 9 times out of 10 we buy popcorn. Because you're supporting the theater that way, because that's where they're making the majority of their money, and I get points on my, I used to when the theaters are open, on my account for every purchase. So those add up. When you're paying $8-9 for a large popcorn, you end up gaining the free points for stuff pretty quick, anyways. But yeah, I don't know, that wasn't too scarring. I mean, we know Connor can't eat, chocolate too much.
Not for lack of like. I never ate like a ton of chocolate, but I would get some M&Ms, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I wish we could get the crispy M&Ms. We can't get those anymore.
Oh, I love it.
At least none of the stores around me sell them, because I've looked, because they were so good. It's like the best part of a Kit Kat, plus the candy shell.
That's solid. I never liked them as much as the peanut ones, though. Like I'm just
yeah.
I prefer them to the peanut. I mean, I like peanut M&Ms, but I prefer the crispy ones.
I tend to be really like I used to see like chocolate peanuts, chocolate raisins, yogurt covered raisins was really good.
What about chocolate pretzels? You ever...
I don't like pretzels that much.
No, damn.
No.
That's another salty sweet that.
Just not really my thing.
A pretzel. Because the hard pretzels I'm not into. The big soft pretzels you could buy at like stands and stuff. I had one of them once and I thought that was okay, dipped in caramel. But I mean, that's
when you dip them in cheese. Not so much. So it's not so much a sweet. It's definitely more of a savory. The stadium where the Knights play have the best nacho cheese, as I found the last game I went to. You could eat it just by itself if you wanted to.
The last game he'll ever go to.
Shh, don't say that.
It's done, Matt. Sports are done.
No, for now. We'll be back.
I mean, I am quite good because right now, I shouldn't be doing this. I should be sitting here pretending to listen to you two yabber on while I have the snooker, the World Championship on the other screen, and it's just not happening, and it's quite sad.
That's a crying shame. How could we ever move on from that?
Yeah, I'm supposed to be watching baseball right now too, Connor. I get it.
Yeah.
Would you two stop watching sports during the podcast? Jesus Christ. Actually,
you've never had a problem before.
Pay attention to what's going on.
It's only a problem when the Knights are playing, right? Because then I get way more invested in what's going on there. With baseball, though, I can look every so often.
I think the real crux is if Peter's never noticed that we're watching the sports during the show, it's clearly not a problem.
Yeah.
I don't notice Matt doing it. Like I said, unless there's a Knights game. I feel like I do sometimes see your eyes drifting to the side.
Name one example.
What do you mean, name one example? What am I supposed to give you a timestamp of a previous episode?
Exactly. Go and find proof of where you think I was watching some sports.
Always.
And the only reason Matt's eyes don't drift to the side is because he's only got the one screen to look at.
So I put it. I put it right here. Yeah, because it goes up on the phone. I just put my phone up against the screen.
Slight difference. Whereas if I'm looking dead at you guys, it's there. Whereas the screen with the sports would be there. So
Matt's tactic is basically the auto cue. He's got it right under where he's supposed to be looking at anyway, so it doesn't actually come across that noticeable.
If you want, I can just look at the sports instead of you guys, and then that'll solve the problem.
And then it's called pulling a Mario.
Anyway, I'll wrap up the questions portion of the show. Thank you to everyone who sent them in. We'll probably ask for some more next week. I think next week is kind of a main event. Maybe I'll do a wee quiz. I'll write a wee quiz for these two to go head to head on the show.
Yeah, let's see if me and Matt will go along with that.
Have some fun. What do you mean go along? Why would you refuse?
Well, maybe we're gonna come up with some ideas of our own.
I want to hold my breath.
Pete, have you seen the video of Darby Allin and his girlfriend wrestling through their house?
I haven't seen that. I saw him do a coffin drop in a store off the counter.
Okay.
I've seen that one.
Yeah, I'm gonna tweet it out right now. Just retweet it.
Right.
It's very funny. That guy's a star. It's so stupid. Nothing about him I should like. Like, I don't like his style of wrestling, but I can't not watch him and like him.
Yeah, I mean, AEW's not even existed a full year yet, and it already feels like they've got 5 stars that are kind of at various points in the path of being huge.
And so I really liked Murder Hawk. I'm drawing a blank right now on his name, Lance Archer. Before, like, G1 was great. Him beating down Marco Stunt and then throwing him into the crowd. I know Lance Archer's a safe worker because I've talked with people that have worked with him. So to make it look like he did not care about Marco Stunt, that's right there as a performance.
Did you say Jungle Boy? It was Marco Stunt, right?
It was Marco Stunt.
I thought you said Jungle Boy. Maybe I misheard something.
Yeah. No.
He threw
Marco Stunt.
Yeah.
And people were upset about that because, like, oh, this is no different than what WWE does. Well, it's like, well, no. Now this sets up him versus Jungle Boy or Luchasaurus, which is a match I can 100% get behind.
Yeah, it starts with you'll go to Jungle Boy and then you'll eventually face Luchasaurus and it'll be more of a horse fight. Yeah, that's how it'll work.
Which cracks me up because that's like a Pokemon evolution, right? Marco Stunt becomes Jungle Boy, becomes a Luchasaurus.
Yeah. I mean, okay, we're actually recording, so I guess this is the wrestling talk.
Let's go.
I wasn't doing this next, but Connor decided to go get a drink, so here we are. So we've actually spoken about any of this since the Empty Arena show started. So it's been kind of a weird 3 weeks where we had wrestlers in the audience for week 1, and then they moved to different. Well, week 2 there was no wrestlers in the audience because they weren't allowed to
backstage.
But then this week they recorded in a secret location in a different state so they could have wrestlers around the ring again. And apparently they recorded enough stuff in the past week to last until mid-May if they can't record anything else till then. So. And the big thing they're doing obviously is this tournament for the TNT Championship. Obviously there's jokes people have made about, I can't wait for the Weather Channel Championship, or I can't wait for the this or that. But to be fair, their name is Dynamite. The show's called Dynamite. TNT kind of goes with it. It works.
Exactly. I have zero problems with this. It sounds better than Intercontinental, right, which has been done to death, or United States, or North American. Like, all the companies rip off each other. So, would I ever want NXT to have a USA title? I mean, they kind of already do with the North American, right? Like, that name's not any different, so it's fine.
I do hope they have a different set of rules for this belt. Like, maybe it's like the matches have to be like 10-minute time limit or something. Just something to separate it from the main one. Yeah. I think that'd be good.
Like, don't make it a lower card belt. Make it feel special. Like, it doesn't need a 24/7 designation, right? Where it always has to be defended.
Of course not, yeah.
And all that type of stupid stuff. But, like you said, 10-minute time limit, or,
maybe it has to be defended every week, or like a TV title or something,
It's either going to be on Dynamite or on After Dark, or what's their show?
Just Dark.
Dark. After Dark. Yeah. There's some people
After Dark's the one you watch where you want to really see Chris Statlander. It says you've got a big crush on her.
Yeah. Boot me anytime.
So yeah, it's been a weird few weeks. The tournament I'm looking forward to. I think when they revealed half the bracket and it was like, okay, Darby Allin's there, Cody's there, Sammy Guevara, I was like, man, I can see so much storytelling in having like Sammy or even Darby rather, like finally go over Cody in the semifinals, or even hell have him just lose to Cody again and set up the idea that Cody's the guy that he can't beat, so that one day we can there's so many story potential. But when they revealed the other half of the bracket and Lance Archer was in it, I was like, okay, it has to be Lance Archer and Cody in the final. Like, nothing else makes sense now. It has to be that.
Or they're setting up They're setting up Lance Archer against Marco Stunt, who's a small guy. Darby's also a small guy, but what difference between Darby and Marco Stunt is Darby doesn't stop, and you can't threaten to kill Darby because he's already half dead.
Yeah, I feel like either it may be too early to have him lose properly. I can see maybe they'll try and get Lance eliminated via something that doesn't make him just a loser in a match. Like, either he gets distracted or something, something to make it.
But what I do like about AEW too is that they're playing with alignments, right? Whereas Inner Circle are bad guys, but they're neutral bad guys, right? They're all about themselves. There's no code, there's no lack of code. It's just them. They stick up for each other. And then you have like Lance Archer coming in who just wants to destroy everything, He doesn't care who's in the way.
By the way,
I could see him coming into blows with them or with MJF, or you know what I mean? Like,
oh sure, yeah. Yeah,
you know?
Jake's promos, by the way, the ones he's recorded from home or whatever, they've been great. Yep. You know, the one where he was saying to Cody, you know, bring your, and he said like 3 different, you know, like people, and the last one was like, oh hell, bring the oh god, I'm forgetting. Monica, right? That was it. That was the one. It was like the Monica Lewinsky joke. But he was kind of listing, like, you know, like women who have been attached to these, like, you know, powerful men in the past. He's such a good speaker still. But that's good stuff. I think the other big things we need to speak about from the last few weeks. One, of course, is Brody Lee, the Exalted One, and his skits where he's basically parodying Vince McMahon.
Yeah. Part of me loves it. Part of me hates it because it's so one trick. But they're doing that trick so well. You know, of course, the Dark Order is the other company when you think about it.
Which, in retrospect, the idea that this little cult is a diluted version of like WWE is actually kind of amazing. Like,
right, telling all these other wrestlers you can come and be somebody, yet they're still the same, just with a Dark Order mask on.
And actually, adding to that idea, there was a promo from Daniels, which wasn't on Dynamite. It was like something they put on social media after the reveal. And it was a really great promo where he talked about, oh, you know, those guys you've added haven't done anything. You know, Joe Silver, whatever those 2 guys are called, like those 2 jobbers, like they haven't become anything. Like, it's all about the top 3. It's always about, you know, Archer and... Brody, and you know, obviously Grayson and
Evil Uno.
Yes.
Grayson, and now
I'm going to think of the names, but it's like everything's about them. Everyone under that doesn't get anything, right? And it's like, like they're actually really hitting this hard. That so, you know, great addition, I think.
Right. So, and if anyone wants to pick, they're hitting the level. Don't ever forget that they named Soul Train Jones Virgil, which was Dusty Rhodes' real name. And they turned him into the toady for the $1 Million Man. So WWF has never been above this type of shenanigans either, and it's what makes wrestling fun. So just have fun with it. Brody Lee looks like he's having the time of his life.
Oh, yeah.
Like, this is a guy that when he was holed up for his knee, he was in a movie, which I still haven't seen, called Mohawk, where he plays a like revolutionary soldier that goes, you know, that ends up being hunted by a tribe of Native Americans out for revenge. And apparently he's really good in it. And I remember him doing an interview where he's like, yeah, if this wrestling thing doesn't work out, I hope that I can parlay it into small stuff. Like, I want to be the villain in a horror movie. And now him playing this version of Vince McMahon, complete with the dark suits. Like, it's almost too on the nose, and that's why I think I like it so much.
Yeah, and I like that line. That first week he showed up, he was like, you know, you're not the first old man to not believe in me, and but you're going to be the last. So, you know, they're really poking at it. I think he's a good fun addition. Big thing we have to talk about is the Matt Hardy edition, the reveal, but more importantly, Chris Jericho doing promos on a drone. Vanguard one. So I thought the one from last week was great, where he just says he's a piece of shit. He says, "I don't your social views on or your political views on Twitter, you know, like bullshit. All that stuff." And then he asks him to join the inner circle because he wants him as an ally. And he gets mad at him. That was hilarious. They somehow topped it this week with this thing where Jericho's in his jacuzzi. He does the thing again where he pours the bubbly in the glass, but then drinks it from the bottle anyway. Hilarious. He's wearing jeans in the jacuzzi. Why would... So the drone comes in, right? We get the Terminator vision. The drone comes in. And so he basically says, I still want you to join the inner circle. He gets out, he gives him a little t-shirt and hooks it onto the drone, and it flies away. I don't think I've laughed as much as I have in a long time that when Jericho turned and said, "Release the hounds," and then all of his like really sort of like household dogs aren't even that big, just come running out.
Yeah, so the first wave of them are his dogs. Like, there's a lab, there's another medium-sized dog, and then out come the little fluffy ones and a chihuahua. And he knows exactly what he's doing. Also, is it me, or does it look like he's actually getting back into shape?
It looks like he's toning down a little bit, yeah.
Which, again, people want to chalk up to him getting lazy and whatnot, but I do feel it was a character choice that when he was doing in New Japan, he wanted to be the complete opposite of like a Tanahashi, of a Okada. And so he actually let himself get a little bit bloated. He still performed pretty well. I mean, that Tanahashi match, I don't know if you watched it from Wrestle Kingdom this year, was pretty damn good. But now he actually looks like, not that he has dad bod because he doesn't, but it's not classic Jericho. It's not like Jericho when he was going against Owens, right, at that last WrestleMania he was at. But he's sturdier and he's got like almost old man strength going on. And it's such a fit. And then you put him against Matt Hardy. And
which,
the
by
whole...
the way, see when Matt Hardy actually showed up for the promo, some of his lines were great. So he's like, a hole of the ass, like
a hole of the ass.
Yeah.
So
like that.
If you guys aren't familiar, and this goes for Pete because I already talked to him offline about this stuff, go on YouTube and search for the original Final Deletion, which was him versus Jeff, and then there's a whole saga against him versus the Bucks of Youth and the tag team stuff through Ring of Honor. It is room quality bad, but self-aware about it. Like, again, it's not the best thing, but I've never been more entertained by stupid stuff.
Yeah, I have been exceptionally impressed. Even though the wrestling itself's not been as exciting because there's no crowd, right? No. And there's very little we can do about that. There's some good stuff. Omega and Trent had a pretty decent match this week.
Omega's gonna wrestle. That's of course. That's it.
Yeah, and again, the last couple of weeks there was also some pretty decent matches, but there's all these little sketches or these little vignettes or whatever they're doing, and then even just something as simple as like this week there was a moment where Britt Baker was going nuts in the crowd and hitting Cody with her shoe, and she looked like maniacal. She was holding her shoe up, and I was like, that's a meme. That moment right there was great. Like, that is something that I've seen on Twitter all the last few days.
They are organically building these people to where I feel like a lot of the hype that comes out of people when they sign is, oh, this is who they were on the indies. But with AEW, they're not making Britt Baker be this indie version of herself. They're allowing her to build her character as they go. And the whole dentist thing, the whole Starbucks, her working with Tony, now this beating with the shoe and just being, or the stuff with her and Sheeta during Sheeta's match, where she's kind of heckling her on the side, and this is the type of character she's becoming. This is why I like wrestling. The in-ring stuff's cool. Like, I love a good match, but I like it because it is storytelling. And it's one-of-a-kind storytelling.
Before AEW, there was like a period where I would dip in and out of WWE, mainly for the NXT shows and the odd thing where there was the odd good match, right? And I think because I think I was conditioned at that point to like, well, when the in-ring's good, it can be a good match, and that's what I like. And I'd kind of forgotten that the storytelling and the character work can be good. And I think one of the things that AEW's done in the last few months is remind me that the actual stuff outside the ring can be equally as entertaining. It's just WWE has been terrible at it for decades at this point. Like, it's just not been good for a long ass time.
Like, WrestleMania is going off today as we record the first part. They've already recorded a bunch of stuff. And they're having a scramble, and a lot of the stories just aren't there. Like, I've tried to listen to some other wrestling podcasts I used to listen to, and it's harder now that I'm really only watching AEW. But I was listening to some of them, and outside of Cena versus The Fiend, or Orton and Edge, which relays on 10 years ago, right? A lot of the stories just aren't there. Like, I really don't care about AJ and Taker. Or Goldberg, and even at the time it was supposed to be Goldberg and Roman. The stories just aren't there. I don't care. But yeah, AEW, I care about Trent versus Omega. And like, yes, I know they're familiar with each other from New Japan, and I know Trent can go, but can he go against Omega?
Yeah.
And Omega I don't want to say drug, because Trent was pretty involved in the match as well. Those two had a damn near 5-star match for an empty arena show.
Yeah, and
like,
it was a great moment. It was a comedy bit in there where Orange Cassidy, after one of the hugs, wanted to hug Omega. Chuck kind of pulled the pads. No, you don't hug him.
Yeah.
That's good.
So the women's match. There was this girl who I forget her name, but I know her last name was Jay with 2 Y's because it stood out as weird. But her versus Sheeta was a solid match. Like, they're still putting on solid matches, but like, this stuff is independent of the major story that they're telling with the Inner Circle or shoot. This is the most I've ever thought of Jake Hager as a threat. Him talking about how he's going to take out Moxley, and it's not even about the title. It's about the honor of the Inner Circle and that they're going to support me no matter what, if I win or if I lose, and that's why I'm with them. It's like, shit. Well, you put Jake Hager in the right conditions, he's compelling.
And they've got, they're doing a no holds barred match next week. Or is it 2 weeks from now? Maybe 2 weeks from now.
But that's happening. Whenever that rolls out.
Yeah. I just want to mention as well, obviously, we didn't have most of the commentary team there these last couple of weeks. It was Tony and Cody with occasionally Kenny Flynn. This last week it was, what's his face? Colt was in there for a lot of it. I will say, Tony being the lead commentator is really nostalgic. Him like running the commentary. I will say I was laughing because not this week but last week there was a whole running thing where Sammy had like these drawings in the crowd, and one of them was of a Star Trek character, and Cody kept bringing up that he was frustrated that he couldn't figure out who the Star Trek character was, and it turned out it was Kirk, but it was the Kelvin universe Kirk. It was Chris Pine, and he sounded so disappointed. I thought it was really funny.
Cody seemed legit upset that he didn't get it.
I know he was. It was a great, but I think it was during the ad break on Fight TV. There was a moment where he asked Tony who his favorite Star Trek captain was, and he said Cisco from Deep Space Nine. He's like, "Oh, really?" And they had this little debate about. I was like, "This is really funny."
Well, he goes, "Yeah, Cisco," and I don't know anything about Star Trek, but I know this is when Cisco started as a commander. He's not really a captain.
Yeah.
And he brought that up, so that wasn't just on the fight because he brought that back up during the broadcast because I remember hearing that and going, "Damn, Cody, let him off easy." Clearly, you're a Star Trek nerd. We get it. But yeah, no, the show's been solid. Cabana, who's someone that I was only familiar with the CM Punk saga, and I've seen stuff here and there. He's really good on commentary. Like,
oh yeah, I like his Superman pin. I thought it was a really fun little pin. The way he sort of like jumps over and kind of it's like a roll up, but he uses his feet and kind of just stretches out.
Yeah, like so he's solid. I thought it was funny too. Him describing Darby Allin was a lot of comparisons to Punk. He's like, yeah, I like guys that think outside the box, and so if you know what had happened between those two, it almost seemed like he was looking for that version of his friend again, and it was kind of tragic. And I don't know if I was just reading too much into it, but he's like, yeah, I think I like this Darby Allin kid.
Yeah, because the thing that happened with him and Punk kind of sullied me on Punk is a person a little bit.
Me too.
It was kind of rough. But
me too. But again, I don't know their personal lives. I just know that, from what I hear, Punk is a very hard person to get along with, and I give Colt credit for as long as they were friends, and maybe they'll work it out one day. Maybe they weren't meant to be friends that long. I don't know. That said, not being that familiar with Colt Cabana outside of, things here or there, and just hearing he's genuinely a nice guy. I really liked him on commentary, more so than Cody. I just feel like Colt's way more natural when it comes to just talking. Like, I feel like Cody's trying to put on a presenter's voice where he's trying to name wrestling moves. Like, hey, I know what's going on.
Do you know what I kind of liked about Cody in commentary, though, is that he wasn't as polished as, say, Cole, and he definitely not as Tony, right? But what I liked about Cody is he kind of kept dropping these little inside baseball things. Like, he would make these little digs at either, like a wrestling trope, or he'd be like, oh, it's funny to see that again, or there's these little things just kind of in there.
He's like, oh, that's a grip that you don't typically see in professional wrestling. That's more of a collegiate move. Yeah. And I was like, wow, Cody, but no, I just feel like the Colt brings like an almost like a conversational quality it reminds me of like the best like sports broadcasters, like teams that work together for a while. It doesn't seem like one's doing color and one's doing play-by-play. It seems like they're just having conversation while the game's going on. Yeah. And that's how I felt with Shivani and Colt.
We'll put Carter out of his misery in a minute. As the last thing I want to mention about the last few weeks of Dynamite, again, Dynamite makes me laugh so often. I'd forgotten what this feels like with a wrestling show, but back to those drawings that Sammy had on the ringside, when he kissed the Brandy one, and the camera cutting to Brandy's face, priceless. The look of disgust on her face was just wonderful.
Yeah.
So
her transition into this new Brandy, I like her so much more. I appreciate they're trying to do something different with her, and not just because she's Cody's wife, Brandy. I see this is more who she is as an actual person. As the chief branding officer, right?
No, I've always liked Brandy as a presence, because I laughed actually because she was doing ring announcing the first 2 weeks of the empty arenas because obviously for whatever reason Justin Roberts couldn't be there. And they always do those things with a little joke thing will be above their name when the name comes up. For her, it said swore she would never ring announce ever again. Was the one that came up underneath her. But I like that. And now she's managing the new tag team, Dustin and QT, or a tag team now.
Okay.
Natural Nightmares, they're called.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So I'll be a little bit honest. I haven't been watching full because I've been doing other stuff in the house while wrestling's on.
Sure.
And paying attention to the main stuff. So I missed that. I did see, however, because Reddit got a hold of the screen caps because they've been sharing the Hangman ones when he's been on the show.
Yeah, he's usually got funny ones. Yeah.
He's got real funny ones too. I do miss Hangman. So I hope this gets cleared up. We can see him. That was a fun story. What was going on? Real quick, the Young Bucks little promo this week. Them having a tennis court on their property where they put up a wrestling ring is the most Young Bucks. I don't know if that's their real thing or if that's just something they did for the video. I loved it. It was just this little stupid thing that it really hit, and it made my wife go, wow, they seem like pretty normal dudes outside of their gear, because she only knows them as in-ring types. And she's like, they seem like normal guys. I go, I know, right? So that was a fun little piece that they did to kind of humanize them.
No, it's been as good as it can be, given the circumstances. So hopefully we in at least a couple of months' time, we can get back to some crowd shows, but we'll see. We have no idea. This is impossible to say. So we'll move on to another section here. We'll maybe talk about movies that we've been watching. Connor's been quiet for a bit, obviously, because he doesn't care about wrestling. So, Connor, why don't we'll just go round robin, I guess, until someone start running out. Bring up a movie. Obviously, keep it relatively spoiler-free, because we're not doing, spoiler reviews or anything.
No, that's fine. So over the last couple of months in the UK, and pretty much everywhere outside of the US and Canada, Netflix got the rights to all the Studio Ghibli movies, with the exception of Grave of the Fireflies. But they've been releasing them, so there's 21 movies they got the rights to, and they've been releasing 7 a month over the last 3 months. So I've been kind of slowly picking away at those. So I watched Porco Rosso last week, just a few nights ago. But that was a lot more fun than I expected, because I'd seen, the vague what it is. It's a pig in a plane. I'm like, okay, sure, fine, whatever. But it was really good. It's it's a man who was cursed to become a pig, but he's still like a fighter pilot, and it's he's against there's all these mobsters, and it's there's Italian gangsters and stuff, and it's a lot of fun. And like I said,
I wish...
the line, I'm a pig. I don't fight for honor. I fight for a paycheck, was just the best bit ever. Yeah. I'm into this.
I wish I enjoyed the anime stylings, because this sounds like something that I would really enjoy. I can't get over the animation though. It's very tough for me. So
but it's I mean I've been going through a lot of them over the last couple of months, so I think that's 6 or 7 of them. I'm just kind of going through them in release order.
Alternatively, I've been kind of working through the filmography of someone right now. As I've been watching movies on stream more often recently, because I've been in a real movie kick, right? And we've been kind of shifting to try and watch better movies sometimes, because it's kind of natural to just watch some bad horror or action movies, because it's kind of funny to make fun of, to joke about them as they're on and so on.
They're comfort.
But we decided to start looking at, and this is not the good movies, this is still in the bad movies. Look at the works of a 80s action star that kind of passed me by when I was a kid. I'd never heard of this person, but Cynthia Rothrock was a martial artist who became a movie star and did a lot of B-movie stuff. Obviously never came to the height of Jean-Claude Van Damme or anything like that, because most of it I assume you've never heard of her. But I've just been picking random movies that she has on Amazon Prime. The 3 that I've watched so far were what was that first one? Sworn to Justice, where it's a really typical action revenge movie where her sisters and her nephew are murdered, but there's this also slight supernatural twist where she has premonitions, or she gets memories or whatever of like what happened. She's like a psychic, and yeah, there's a lot of kicking and shit, and it's kind of what it is. Martial law, which is spelt martial as in martial arts, because the whole idea is yes.
That's how you spell martial law.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the right spelling. Yeah. Unlike some U.S. senators who clearly do not know that.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. But it's a pun though, because the whole idea is that it's because the cop.
She's a cop.
Yeah, the cop. Well, it's not her. She's actually not the main character in this movie. She's a love interest in the main character, who is his nickname is Martial Law because he knows martial arts. So that's what they all call him.
His name is Chad McQueen in real life, and he named his. Wait a minute, that's Steve McQueen's son.
Are you looking this movie up as I'm talking about it? Is this what's happening?
Yes, I did. Okay, so I thought that was just his name. Like,
sure.
Oh, I'm gonna pick McQueen. No, so I was like, his son's name's Stephen R. McQueen. I go, that's a little off. Like, you're gonna name your kid after Steve? Well, no, of course he named his son after his dad.
Yeah,
his dad is the Steve McQueen from Bullet. I
do have to admit, halfway through the movie, it dawned on me why it was called martial law, because I kept expecting, like, when does martial law happen? I'm waiting for martial law to kick in.
It took you that long.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, it's a pun. I get it.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
Right, both of those movies weren't that good though. They had a couple of high points, but for the most part, were kind of dull. Guardian Angel, the third one I watched though, this one. Like, the first half of this movie, every single scene either ends in a shootout, a hand-to-hand fight, or a car chase. It has almost no plot for half the movie, as it just does action scene after action scene. And they're just ridiculous. People are dying. And then there's a plot eventually, and it slows down a little bit, but it was definitely the most entertaining of the three. So, I don't know. I'll keep watching more stuff the Rothrock movies, but I wanted to mention those because they're wacky.
You didn't mention in martial law that David Carradine plays the bad guy.
Oh yes, of course. David Carradine's the bad guy. Himself. Also, the sort of cop in the first one I mentioned, Sport of Justice. Mm-hmm. In that, the cop in that is actually the lead character from God Told Me To, which is funny because me and Tara just did that on the Atomic Cinema Experiment. So
that's a wild ride of a movie.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. God Told Me To is a hell of a thing. So look out for that if you want to hear me and Tara tell you what that movie is. And to be honest, the way it starts is not how it ends. Just brace yourself.
That movie goes places.
Matt, have you been watching it?
Yeah, so last week I watched Jay and Silent Bob Reboot because it's on Amazon Prime. And I've been kind of out on the Kevin Smith movies after Tusk and Yoga Hosers. More Yoga Hosers just kind of upset me.
Tusk's great.
Tusk was fine. Yoga Hosers, not so much. I was like, I feel like the novelty is worn off. Yet he comes back with Jay and Silent Bob, and it's surprisingly sweet. It's definitely more in the tone of Chasing Amy, although not as serious. Yeah, that Kevin definitely had something to say. So it's kind of nice. And it basically is a reboot of Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, but it hits different themes. So it's one of those weird remakes, sequel kind of things.
Yeah. Jay and Silent Bob is one of the handful of his films I haven't seen, so that's why I've been holding off on watching Reboot. But maybe I'll back to back him.
Yeah, you should back to back him because there is a little bit of things that you do need for this one to work. But
yeah, I asked Alden, who was talking about it a few months ago, because he's a big Kevin Smith fan.
Yes, he is.
And he was like, "No, you should really probably watch the original." So
that boy has terrible taste.
Yeah, but it's almost a sequel to each of his movies because there's stuff that shows up here. There's characters from like Dogma, which is usually off by itself, that pop up here. Yeah. So
I never heard of Kevin Smith until I was much older. The first thing I ever seen them in, I didn't even realize what it was until later. But Jay and Silent Bob have a cameo in Scream 3, and that's what I knew Jay and Silent Bob from. Well, I didn't even know their names. That's what they were in. That's the only thing I've seen them in for a long time.
The first thing I'd ever seen was Dogma, and then I had worked my way back. I unapologetically love Mallrats. I know it's not the best movie.
It's one of my lesser liked ones.
Yeah,
I'd still watch it right now.
Yeah, and so I've always had a weak spot for his kind of like. It's not ever really good outside of like really Clerks or Chasing Amy, but he has this weird way of connecting with me emotionally Have
you seen? No, there are some other ones I would say are more traditionally good as well. Jersey Girl and Zack and Miri Make a Porno.
Fine, yeah, those are fine, but I feel like both of them is him trying to go, hey, look, I'm not just the
No, I mean
arts guy.
They're still good, but they're more traditionally good rather than Kevin Smith good.
Right. So, but, then I worked my way back through. But like Red State, that's one of my favorites of his because it's so different.
Red State's one of the only Red State, Cop Out.
I haven't Cop Out. I refuse to watch it.
Silent Bob.
I hate that this has turned into just a Kevin Smith. I've got more movies to talk about. Come on,
I think, and Yoga Hosers. Those are the only 4 I've not seen.
Yeah, I really don't like Yoga Hosers. I still want him to make Moose Jaws, which is just Jaws with a moose.
Yes.
Like, that's right.
Every time he talks about it, I'm like, please make this movie.
Yeah. And then he was also supposed to make a hockey-themed one called Hit Somebody, which then got turned into a show, which has been put on the back burner, which right now, which leads me to, I missed hockey so much. Mighty Ducks 2 was on the other day, and I watched it from wherever it was.
That's getting in 2.
Yeah. What?
Yeah.
It's getting in 2 movies here.
Well, that's because I didn't.
Well, I've got more to do. Carter, what else do you want to talk about?
Oh, so I want to talk about because I forgot at the end of our worst movie discussion of the year that we just did. Cats. I'm gonna rant about Cats because it's goddamn awful.
I'm going to sit back for a while and just kind of go to sleep. I'll wake up when Carter's done.
It's all right. Pete's he doesn't want to hear all the terrible things he's about to have to put himself through in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah.
When he has to watch it. So Cats, I did not realize, is a suicide cult. The movie is about them trying to decide which of them gets to be reincarnated into a better cat. So the whole movie is like, well, it's just which one of us should die right now, and that's the plot. And I'm like, what? How did I not know this about Cats? And then, so you know how Cats infamously got the patch to fix its visual effects while it was still in the cinemas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they forgot to apply that to the home release version. So they put it out on home release, and it's back to the unedited version where like Judi Dench still has a wedding ring on her hands and just normal human hands.
So like, however you feel about that director, right? I enjoyed King's Speech. I thought Les Mis was a little bit Oscar bait type. Tom Hooper, what were you thinking? Who has video of him doing something bad that they made him make? Because I can't imagine him wanting to do this.
I just said because see what you want. Like, maybe you don't know they're not your sort of movies, but they're objectively well made.
I feel like if you put a wig on Tom Hooper and then some sunglasses, you'd realize it's actually Tommy Wiseau, and they're one and the same.
I don't know.
Honestly, this movie could have been done by Tommy Wiseau,
and it probably would have been more watchable.
If you told me it was if this was a Tommy Wiseau movie and not a Tom Hooper movie, I'd have believed you. It's insane.
I have no words.
I'm going to the John Adams miniseries. How did I not know that?
I'm going to talk a little bit about. I've got a couple of more proper serious movies, but I want to talk about a horror movie I watched called Screamers, aka Island of the Fishmen. Now,
yes.
So this starts off as this sort of almost slasher monster movie where it's just people arriving on the island and they're getting killed and brutally by these kind of knockoff creatures from the Black Lagoon-esque looking things, right? And then the plot kind of gets going after the opening 20 minutes. And I guess I'll have mild spoilers for this one, but it's like this really weird Italian movie from like 1979, so I don't think anyone cares. But it turns out that the evil scientist on the island has been experimenting with the fish monsters because they can swim down to the lost city of Atlantis and get the gold that he wants. That's actually what's really going on here. It was a wild ride. That's all I'll say about that.
I need to watch this.
I was going to say I feel like this is a Matt movie.
It's on Prime, Matt.
If I have nothing, well, I mean, I'm not going back to work for a minute. So if I have time to watch,
on Prime, it's called Screamers, and it's Screamers from like 1978, 79.
Okay, I will find it. This sounds like exactly my kind of bullshit.
Yeah, it was. It's one of those movies. So. I watched that. In terms of more serious stuff, I did watch Patriots Day, which was about the Boston Marathon bombings.
Bombing. Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, Mark Wahlberg's terrible, and he is the worst part of that movie. And it's not that he's terrible in the movie. He's whatever. His character just kind of feels like he's added so that there's like a character that connects everything together. Because the best thing about that movie is once it gets going and the bombers are on the run, the way it kind of recreates the chase and all the shootout stuff and all that stuff is exceptional. It reminded me a lot of Our Boys from HBO, which was a good series from last year. The way they sort of splice in bits of security camera footage and things like that and recreate kind of the sequence of events. That stuff was really good. The only real complaints I'd make about the movie would be there's a couple of like patriotic speeches at various points about the determination of the country and the like, I don't know, it got a bit sentimental, which is something that American movies have to do when it tackles a subject like this.
And Peter Berg's hit that point in his career where that's the type of movie he makes, because he did Deepwater Horizon as well, and then I think Mile 22 is along the same lines, and he's just rolling them out at this point.
Yeah, this was better than Deepwater Horizon. I think this was better than that.
Well, I think there's more of a mystery there, where Deepwater Horizon is just a disaster movie. And how are they going to deal with the platform and whatnot? Which I almost went and saw because Kate Hudson and right, Kate Hudson's in Deepwater.
Yeah, that was his wife in it, I think.
Yeah, and Kurt Russell's in it as well. So, but I never got around to it.
Yeah,
but I like Peter Berg as a director. Like, I really enjoy The Kingdom for all of its faults. I think that's like I say, outside of a couple of sentimental speeches that I could have done without, because it makes it feel a bit more, I don't know, I don't want to say propaganda-esque, but it feels a bit more, pat in the back kind of thing, as opposed to just like more of a straight, because you don't have to do that. That's just the thing. What happened was horrible, and people who were affected by it, like, that stuff speaks for itself. You don't have to do a big speech. There's another movie about that takes the opposite track that's called Stronger with Jake Gyllenhaal, and then the girl that was on Orphan Black. I can never get her name right.
Tatiana Maslany.
That one. I can say her first name. Her last name always trips me up. But it's about a guy that was involved in the bombing and how he lost his legs, and then his struggle to come up. And it's a little bit. I don't want to say I haven't seen it all. I've seen bits and pieces here, but it's more about his struggle to reclaim what was taken from him and his independence and whatnot. It's based on a true story, and I feel that you can do what Pete's talking about without necessarily doing the whole rah America thing, because it's about one man's struggle. Right, so you can rah around him, So that one's out there. If people want to watch that. I'm a big Gyllenhaal fan. I still haven't seen it just because it gets too. A lot of those ones hit me too hard emotionally. I don't like to feel things. That's why I like what I like.
I think that's fair. Do you have any left, Cara, before I do my last one?
Let me have a look. Only Yesterday, which is another one of the Ghibli movies, but this one was completely different. This one is a much more kind of typical drama. It's about a woman who's in her late 20s, going to visit the countryside, as she does every year on her her leave from work, and it's her remembering this time that she visited the countryside as like a 10-year-old girl. And it's this kind of parallel story of her then and as a young girl and what she went through, and then her life as it is now, and whether or not she's gonna get married and such.
Can I guess why this was on your short list to watch right now?
I mean, you could guess, but I mean, it's almost certainly wrong.
I mean, I know you're watching the Ghibli stuff, but
which is pretty much the other reason.
But it has nothing to do with Daisy Ridley being the voice of the main character?
No, because I actually didn't know that until after I started it.
Okay. Because I just pulled it up and went,
I think it was something that after I'd started listening, I was like, is that? And then I checked and I was like, and I had a vague memory of this being announced a few years back of her being the voice in this redubbing that they'd done. But I'd actually completely forgotten. It was literally it was the next film on the
Gotcha.
Ghibli list, which is why I put it on. Dev Patel, I think, was in it as well.
Yeah, was the other guy, yeah.
Yeah. Solid cast, like, clearly.
Yeah. Right.
Which actually goes for all the Ghibli dubs. All of them have really solid casts, so you can't go wrong with them.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of them, a lot of the people that do them or want to do them are big Ghibli fans.
Yeah.
So it helps.
Like, I was
I just
watching one
remember.
a few weeks back. One of the earlier ones
Uh,
had like Patrick Stewart in. I was like, oh, cool. That was a nice surprise.
I just remember the first one I remember being aware of was Kiki's Delivery Service because they
Yes.
got Kirsten Dunst to play Kiki. And I just remember that being all over, like when you had DVDs that would play the commercials before or the trailers.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember that coming up a lot. I think that's when Disney got the distribution for Studio Ghibli, so they were putting those
because
on.
there's a couple of dubs there where in English where the UK dub was different to the American dub because Disney had the American one, and that's what we kind of, the ones on Netflix are just the Disney ones now, but there were completely different dubs for a while, which was interesting. But yeah, no, it was really solid, kind of typical drama but animated.
Right.
But it was a good movie, worth checking out. It's definitely, I think, one of their lesser known ones.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, proper film that I watched in the last week or so was the original 310 to Yuma, which had been recommended to me, and I'd obviously seen the remake, and the original I actually think is the better movie. It's tighter. Having seen the remake a while ago, I don't remember it, amazingly because it's been a while, but I feel like the original's just got a much tighter pacing. It's 90 minutes. Like the remake has like a whole journey added before they even get to the town with the train station. The original, there's no messing around. It gets in there. I think as much as I think Russell Crowe and Christian Bale are great actors, I actually like the performances in the original more. I don't. It's not so much that they're better actors per se. I mean, you could argue it if you want, but it's more just that the characters are just different enough, and they feel like they fit the story a little bit better. So I was really into it, really tense, and I almost felt like because of who was in the remake, they had to really amped up the characters to give them these big dramatic things, and it's the drama in the original worked really well. The simple story it was telling was what made it so effective. But no, I really liked it. It was a really gorgeous looking movie as well. I mean, it's black and white, 4:3. Actually, no, it wasn't 4:3. What am I talking about? It was was it 166? I can't remember. I don't know. But anyway, it was gorgeous. It was gorgeous. Obviously, I watched this in the Criterion app, so it was a nice, stunning transfer. So I recommend that. Because I watch so much crap on stream that every so often I'm making a point of saying, no, we're watching something that might be great. I want to actually cross off a classic, and this was one. There was another one I did as well, but me and Cara are going to review it soon.
Yeah, I didn't mention that.
Yeah, so I left that off. I also watched a movie called Phase 4 from 1974, which is about ants getting smarter and how much of a danger that would be to the human race.
Do you know what I'm imagining right now? And this is something that will only, I think, mainly will affect the UK listeners of a certain age. But the Cravendale milk adverts of the cats with thumbs. That's what I'm picturing.
I recall
right
this.
now.
Yeah,
but
I
the
recall
ants.
that. Yeah, the cats would basically rule the planet if they had thumbs.
There was a whole series of adverts of just but cats with thumbs. How terrifying would that be?
Yeah.
Well, Connor has seen it. It's called Cats.
All right, so that's basically it for movies. What I'll do is I'll tell a little bit about Resident Evil 3. I'll keep this brief because we'll end with me doing my Patreon book. So then I'll shift over to you guys for anything else you want to add for comics that you've been reading or whatever. Before I get into that, so Resident Evil 3 came out technically yesterday, but it was midnight on Thursday night or just after it actually launched. So
it was about 1 o'clock because we were about to record, and I was like, hang on a second.
Yes, hang on a second. Resident Evil 3 just went live. We're done for the night.
So explain to me before you start. These remakes, are they remakes of the same game just with updated graphics, or is it a new experience?
In this case, it's a new experience.
Okay.
And it's interesting you asked that question because one was remade back in 2002. That was a long time ago. Okay. And it was basically so the original game was PS1, and then they remade it on GameCube at the time with much better graphics. And they did add some stuff, and they reworked a few things, but it was mostly the same thing, but with just far better visuals.
I think by today's standards, we would consider it more a remaster than a remake.
We wouldn't.
Do you not think?
No.
I feel like if you're not changing that much, I think now it's more a remaster.
There was new mechanics, there was new areas, new enemies. It was a remake.
Fair enough.
I really hate how remaster and remake have become these weird murky terms because of all the different things that they've tried to do. But no, definitely a remake. But anyway, so they did that. Resident Evil 2 came out last year, and again, completely changed the style of how it played in terms of the shooting, much more like the modern games, but had all the original puzzles and stuff. Resident Evil 3, the big disappointment with it is that it doesn't actually follow the structure of the original game that much, and it doesn't recreate the locations of the original game. So the satisfaction of the remake side of things, where you walk into a room and like, I know that police station like the back of my hand from 2, and be like, oh hey, I recognize this room from the original, but now it looks like this. That's a lot of the fun. That's gone. However, the gameplay still functions like a good Resident Evil game for the most part. Yeah, the start's a little bit linear, and it does kind of feel like they kind of almost gloss over the first like quarter to the third of the original game, which is where it feels like time's been cut out, because some people are complaining it's too short. But that's the thing. After that point, though, where you pick up from is pretty good. Like, you know, it's paced really well from that point. It just feels like the first hour and a half are missing. It's just kind of weird. But the rest of it plays very well. You're finding items. I have beaten it 4 times already in the last 2 days. I
hung a screen door and put up vertical blinds in case anybody wants to know what I've been doing with my time.
I beat it on hardcore last night. And locked the nightmare difficulty, which is the 4th difficulty, and I know that once I beat that, I'll unlock Inferno difficulty, which is the hardest. But I've been finding it addictive. So as much as I'm saying there's some disappointments in terms of like, okay, as a remake, I'm disappointed that this and this is not there. I will say the things that I'll say have improved, because I do prefer the original game, but the things I'll say it's improved is that the voice acting is obviously better, and there's actually a nice little bond of character arc between the 2 main characters. The hospital section is kind of bigger and better with Carlos, so I like that. That's really nice. Over 2 remake, because 2 remake was really good last year. It was like a home run. The one thing this does that didn't, which I really liked actually, is that it did kind of like new covers of the original music from 3, which was really cool. I liked hearing that as I was going around. But no, it's super addictive. Like I mean, obviously it's my type of game, but like the fact that I finished it on Thursday night after it took me about 7.5 hours that first playthrough, because it always takes you longer your first time because you're kind of learning the game. I immediately just started it up again and got through it in less than 3 hours the second time. So yeah, needless to say, I've been into it.
I do know with I think it was 2. Jared's been playing it. And he was trying to get all the trophies, and then he found out that he had missed 3 files to get that trophy. And he's like, I don't feel like playing through it again. So I guess that's just going to be a trophy I don't get. And I was like, I don't know, man. None of us are working right now. He's like, no, I'm not doing it again. I have other games to play. And it was like he wanted me to talk him into doing it. But I was like, well, if you don't want to do it, don't do it. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
The thing is that if you're going to get all the trophies, the hardest trophies are like beating the hardest mode with a good rank. Yeah. And to do that, you kind of need to play through it a bunch of times anyway for practice, because you can't do that your first time. You just can't. It's impossible.
Well, maybe you can.
I know it.
No, it's impossible. Trust me.
I know. Yeah, I know. With him, he only wants specific trophies. Like he takes pride in certain ones, and like those ones where you find everything. So I know secretly it's still driving him nuts, but he's already moved on. Because he said he got kind of burned out of playing his typical games, so now he's trying turn-based Japanese RPGs.
Okay.
Right, which he's like, maybe that'll restoke, something. But yeah, I just remember him talking about the files for 2 days and going, well, but if you want to do it, you'll do it. I don't know if I can. I don't know what to tell you then. Yeah. I can't make you do things.
One of the cool things is that Jill's like bonus costume, which I actually think I got for pre-ordering the game, is our no, that was actually our original costume from 3. The bonus costume you unlock in the game is a Resident Evil 1 costume, and seeing that in like modern graphics is like, maybe we should remake 1 again. Let's do it again. Let's just do it again, so we could have it like this. I'll play the shit out of it. It's fine. So no, that's Resident Evil 3. I'll save. I'll leave it there because I know that when Tim's finished, that me and Tim are going to sit down and do like a big proper extended discussion.
I remember one of the first things when we were writing for that site, which our first show spun out of, and I was editing your articles about run through Resident Evil. I was like, damn, this guy's got a Resident Evil problem. Because the intricate, like the intricacies or whatever that word is, I always have problems saying it.
Intricacies.
That one. Of going through each game the way that it was. I was like, he has done these at least 20 times. Like, just to know.
I think you're lowballing it there, to be honest. I think he's done them all like 20 times just on stream.
But here's the thing, though. This was 6-7 years ago. So I'm not counting those. I'm counting at that time.
Yeah.
How many times I've done it. So, yeah. Take Pete's words very... There's things I don't mess around with him with ever. That's Buffy and Resident Evil. Those are the two. I'll give him crap about everything else. It's just not worth it with the other two. You know.
Oh dear. Yeah. So no, it's really good. It's definitely not quite the home run that 2 was, but still, I'm glad it exists. And obviously, the fact that I've played it 4 times in the last 2 days means that. Yeah, I mean,
excessive. Yeah.
Yeah. It means that it's still ticking a lot of boxes. That's feeding my appetite. All right. I don't know if Kahar's got any games, or if you guys want to shift to any comics you've been reading from other places.
I got
whatever.
one game that was quite a big new release just last week that I played over the course of the week. That was Doom Eternal.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yep.
Holy crap, that game is fantastic. Like. I love Doom 2016. That was like my favorite game of that year. This blows it out of the water. Like, it is so good.
I wish I had the coordination to play first-person shooters. I just don't. So
I played it on like one of the hard difficulties because that's how I like to play Doom. But I love how it is so unpunishing in the sense that, you know, for its trophies, there are no achievements or trophies locked behind higher difficulties. You can do all of them on the easiest difficulty. And it's fine with that if you want to play it that way, which is cool if you want to, you know, if you're the sort of person who likes to get all the trophies but isn't good enough to do the harder difficulties. You do that. The game is the most metal thing I've ever played.
That's like, so it was you that was telling me.
It's so incredibly metal. Like, Mick Gordon, I think, is the composer who did Doom 2016 as well. Comes back even stronger. This time, because 2016 was just non-stop noise in a good way, like for that game. This has a lot more periods of where there's just this dread that it's building up until you're stepping out on the body of a dead titan, which is like this giant demon from hell, and then, you know, pulling a sword out of its chest that maybe you might accidentally pull too far and bring it back to life, and the music's just going off on one.
Don't like that.
It's like, holy shit, it's good. Honestly, my only critique with the entire game is the sections where you have to swim in the acid. You have to get like a suit to protect you, and it wears off. And it's just clunky and awkward, and I hate those bits. And there's only like 2 or 3 in the whole game. But it's
what's been keeping me from platinuming Spider-Man is the Taskmaster missions. I don't ever want to do those again. I hated doing them. And I can't unlock all the suits without getting those coins.
There was a moment where I thought I wasn't going to do it because of those challenges, and then I realized that you didn't actually have to gold them all. You just had to get enough silvers to afford the suits, and that was it. That was you done. So
then I got mad because I went and I tricked out all my web shooters when I didn't have to, but like I wanted to because I wanted to see all the stuff you could do.
But you could have got the suits instead.
But I could have gotten the suits instead, and I'm mad at myself for that because I'd done just well enough on certain ones. I did like the sneaking around ones. Those were fun. Like, those were frustrating in a fun way. But the race ones where you had to swing through, I hated those.
Doom actually has a pretty similar thing where you have you unlock batteries that unlock things in your base. 2 batteries gets you 1 unlock. But there's spares. Like, there's enough that you can get everything unlocked and have left over, so you can miss some. So it's pretty forgiving in that way. And if you want to replay it to get the collectibles, you know, if you don't get them all the way through first time, you unlock cheats as you go on that are so goddamn fun to play with. Like, there are ones that put infinite berserk mode on, which berserk mode basically takes away your weapon, makes you more or less invincible, and you just melee any enemy, and it will just rip them in half, stomp on their head, anything. It'll be one hit kill anything, even a boss.
I like it.
Oh, Matt.
Yeah,
Mike.
Your mic's going.
Actually,
it's a blast.
Yeah, one of the things about Resident Evil 3 is the replayability is still quite there, because one of the things that happens when you beat the game is you unlock the shop, and the achievements, because the achievements actually have a purpose where you get points for them in game, and then you spend those points and items in the shop, and you buy these things called coins, which you keep in the inventory. Like there's like 2 damage coins, which increase your damage output, 2 recovery coins, which may help you recover health, so on. And these are basically designed to make the game easier, right? And you can use them in the harder difficulties if you want. But they kind of upped. So there's like, okay, so we've got hardcore mode, but you might make that really easy if you buy all the unlocks if you're able to get them. So we'll add a second harder difficulty and then a third harder, even harder. So to the point where I'm pretty sure Infernal mode, the hardest difficulty, is like, yes, you need all those boosts if you even stand a chance. Like you can't even do it without them.
Yeah, Doom's a bitch where the hardest difficulty mode is called Nightmare. That's like it's like the very it's normal hard, very hard essentially, and that's Nightmare, and it's a bitch. Let me tell you. But then it has the mode above that called Ultra Nightmare, which is if you die, game over, tough shit, start over. It deletes your save file and makes you go from the start. It's rough. It's real rough. I got about halfway through Doom 2016 on Ultra Nightmare and then died, and I just like, right, I'm done. It beat me. I never went back. But Doom Eternal's fun. It's a lot faster than 2016. A lot more verticality jumping. You got like dashes in the air. So good.
Yeah, and Last of Us got delayed indefinitely, so I don't have my next big new game for a while.
Yeah, I've got. I should be getting Final Fantasy VII Remake coming this week on my rental service, assuming they ship it out on time and that I get a copy. Or we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of stuff on my Steam wish list. I've got a bunch of stuff that I've been kind of itching to maybe start trying to play. Maybe some RPG, something a bit more long form. I've been tempted to try and do. Obviously, once the Resident Evil 3 kicks, kind of.
I heard there's a new Tony Hawk game, maybe. That's exciting to me.
We'll see. They say that every couple of years.
Yeah, we'll see.
Well, damn it.
Call of Duty, the Modern Warfare 2 remaster, just the campaign dropped kind of the other day out of nowhere. Well, I mean, there was leaks, but no official trailer or pre-announcement. It was just like, here you go. So I grabbed that. It's on PS4 right now. It's not on Xbox or PC for another month, but I'll probably play through that soon as well, because I have a soft spot for that story. I love that game.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any kind of comic stuff before I do my Patreon book? What have you been reading?
Yeah, I let's see where you guys been playing games, watching movies. I throw myself hard into getting comics read. So I finished Sacrifice, which was the story that takes in between OMAC Project 3 and 4, which is basically it all leads to Wonder Woman killing Max Lord to break his control over Superman.
I like that stuff a lot, actually.
The majority of Sacrifice does not hold up. A lot of the building, because it's the Superman and Adventures of Superman writers at that time, and they were tie-ins. So it leads with that stuff, right? So OMAC Project 3, which was written by Rucka, leads off with follow it into Sacrifice, and we get Superman under control, and then once it gets to that point where you find out that he's beaten Batman up so bad that Wonder Woman starts to worry, and then we get to the actual scene where in Wonder Woman where she kills Max Lord, it's really solid. But that's when Rucka's writing again, and then we get the Fallout issues of her dealing with trying to go talk to Batman and like how their relationships have completely changed, and that stuff's really good. But the lead up to it, man, it's early 2000s comics, kind of almost feels like parody of mid 2000s comics. Like the Ed Benes art, like Lois is drawn way too like sexy.
Oh sure, yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? And it's super tough. The dialogue's just, and that's probably just Mark Viridian, I think, was the writer of those. However, go ahead, Connor.
I was going to say, it's interesting you're talking about that idea of early 2000s comics, because me and Pete on previously have been talking about the Superman Emperor Joker.
Which again, that's Loeb and McGinnis, right?
Kind of.
Well, one of the issues was yes.
We're about half of it, because it's like, I think the trade collects kind of the lead in, which is
Our Worlds at War.
Superman Arkham.
Okay.
I think it's called. And then it goes. They have Emperor Joker one shot, and that's the next issue we'll be talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But and this is a story that's pretty well regarded. People from everything I've heard, people like it, and it's kind of rough.
Yeah,
the first issue was really solid.
The first issue with Loeb and McGinnis was good.
Was really good, and then it's kind of like
everything since has felt like filler. Just keep it spinning until the next main bit. It's been rough.
That's how Sacrifice felt too. Once we got back to Rucka, and this was his story that spun out of OMAC Project, it's kind of what we were killing the Year of the Villain stuff. Like, funnily enough, 15 years later, they're still doing this type of stuff.
The key issues are solid, but all the stuff around it feels just kind of time waster.
Yeah. And
then I hadn't read OMAC Project since it came out, so there's a lot that I had forgotten about, and it really hit. And I still have the one shot that was post Infinite Crisis. I'm halfway through that, reading it still. But I stopped reading that so I could read Mark Russell and Steve Pugh's Flintstones. And if you guys liked Wonder Twins at all, or liked anything Mark Russell's done with the superhero stuff, I highly recommend this.
So you're saying I should check it out?
Yes. I don't know how familiar you are with the Flintstones at all.
I've watched the cartoon as a kid.
When you were a kid?
Yeah.
It hits all of those tropes of the Flintstones, of, the talking appliances and like them working with dinosaurs and stuff not making sense. But it brings up Mark Russell, like, satire lens to it all. And so you get stuff where Fred's not just this big dolt, like, stand in for the honeymooners. He actually is this thinking, caring, philosophical character that's looking at this world around him and going, maybe civilization wasn't as good as we thought it was. And then you have Barney, who's the typical Barney, and like you can read it as the, his catchphrases, like, I don't think so, Fred, and all this other stuff. And it all hits. The satire, like the puns with all the rock names and stuff, they all hit. Steve Pugh's art's like really, really good, because you have like these jacked like cavemen, right? But they still look like Fred and Barney. And then Wilma and Betty look like, their counterparts still. They've aged up Pebbles and Bam Bam, so they're like preteens and whatnot. And I just, like, it goes to places to where, like, they use a woolly mammoth as a vacuum, right? Well, the woolly mammoth has thoughts and feelings. So there's part of an issue where the bowling ball that's an armadillo talks with the vacuum cleaner about their day, and how the vacuum cleaner is thankful that she has bowling ball to come back home because she's just kept in the dark all day. And it's just like, it really hit me. And I was like, oh my God, that's so, like, Mark Russell's making me care about this elephant vacuum cleaner, right?
This is 12 issues.
It's 12 issues. I'm 2 issues into the second trade as we go, as I was reading this morning. They do stuff with the Great Gazoo. Like, I don't want to spoil it all because I do want people to read this. They do stuff with the origin of Bam Bam that really hits hard too, because if you know Flintstones and the Betty and Barney story and about how they got Bam Bam, this plays right into that. But it really is Flintstones for a modern generation, whereas you could look at it in the 60s and be like, oh, this is what Hanna-Barbera thought of culture in that time. And now this is Mark Russell and Steve Pugh doing the same thing. So highly, highly recommend it. Highly recommend it.
That's interesting.
Yep.
All right. Carl, you've been reading stuff you want to talk about?
I've been reading Frank Miller's Daredevil.
Ooh.
I tend to always be reading something in the background from whatever we're doing. I tend to be working through stuff. So I'm actually taking a break from Hellblazer. I kind of got to the end of one of the runs of Hellblazer, about the late 80s issues of that. So I'll take a break, read some Daredevil, and I'll probably jump back to Hellblazer after.
I've actually read Frank Miller's Daredevil, so I mean, admittedly, I don't know how much of it I remember, but I've read it.
It's really goddamn good. So I've read Man Without Fear, and then there's 3 trades on Comixology that are Daredevil by Frank Miller and Klaus Janson. I'm halfway through the 3rd trade, give or take.
Because it's the first appearance of Elektra and all that, right? He invented all that.
Yeah.
I want to say.
Yeah,
And Elektra.
Yeah, Kingpin being a big major villain seems. I don't know if it was a big thing for this or if this was.
Kingpin was more traditionally Spider-Man background, like B tier.
Yeah.
And he turned him into like one of the top villains.
Because the main thing I remember is just kind of the introduction of Elektra and sort of writing her into the backstory and like all that stuff. That's the main stuff I remember happening in that.
Yeah. So obviously, I know Man Without Fear was done later, but chronologically, I thought I'll read that first.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people do anyway, and that seems to be the recommended thing. So I read that first, and obviously that's kind of a retelling of that origin. But there is touches on it in the main book. I think I'm on like issue 190 or 191 at the minute, so I've got a handful left, and then I think there's a graphic novel included in this trade, and then there's obviously Born Again that comes later.
And obviously, without this run, there's no Batman Year One, so it's kind of important from a history perspective, even for DC fans.
And I didn't realize Denny O'Neil was the editor of Daredevil at this time, so it's like, okay, that's where that relationship was
it's funny actually, because reading the start of that run, there was some issues where he didn't write; he was just the artist. Miller was the artist.
Yes, Mackenzie, I think, was the writer for a while beforehand, where he was brought on.
And I remember there being I don't know if it was like backmark on the trade or if it was something in the digital copy, where there was like an interview or something with Miller talking about how, like,
I think this is the end of the second trade has like a magazine style thing,
but they took like a risk on him because he wasn't like, it was basically they needed a fill-in for one issue, so he kind of just like sort of put his hat in and said, I'll write an issue, and they kind of took a risk on him, and then they read the issue and went, this was pretty good. Could he write more of this?
Yeah, he was already kind of not a huge name, but a reasonably well known in the artist circles at that point. Like he'd got around, was like, yeah, okay, he's a solid artist, and was considered, pretty good. But he'd done pretty much nothing as a writer by all accounts.
Yeah, the writing was a new thing, so it was kind of funny that kind of made him a writer, and I feel like we think of him actually as a writer first now, more than I mean, don't get me wrong, obviously his art's still a thing, we know what his art looks like, but he wrote Batman Year One, he didn't draw it.
I know, and it's kind of funny that there's so many things that you can see that we associate now as Batman things that originated in this run in Daredevil. Like the idea of Batman vanishing after talking to Gordon, where he Batman's out of the scene. That's a thing that is not just us, that people will call it. Daredevil does that consistently with the journalist whose name I'm forgetting, Ben.
Yeah,
like constantly in this book, and that's a running gag.
I almost feel like the Gordon and Batman relationship happens because of Daredevil and Ben.
I think you're
because there's a lot of similarities between them, because I don't think Gordon was like he was a character that was around, but he wasn't as important to the mythos as he is now until Year One, I think, right? But I mean, Daredevil's a legit ninja. Like that's the whole point of Stick in the hand.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
You know what I mean?
Questioning it. I'm not saying
no. But it makes sense that that's where it started, and then they adapted it to Batman. You could do all the different training stuff.
It's something where now, if Daredevil does this, you kind of go, "Oh, they're just doing Batman stuff."
Well, and I feel that's where I feel like Mark Waid is a comic book historian. I feel that's where the Red Batman stuff came from. Like it is a parody of that, where it's like, well, no. Actually,
well, it's kind of
Batman's great Daredevil.
There's a lot of this. There's a lot of this in history where the first thing to do something is not the thing that actually perfects it or is remembered for doing it. It happens over and over again where technically you think of Halloween as the first real slasher movie, but you can actually find examples from before it that kind of fit into the mold. But Halloween is what solidified what a slasher movie was, and people think of that as the first slasher movie.
It's so efficient as a slasher movie. Like that movie still holds up, right? It's
a masterpiece.
And some of those other slashers just don't. Like, as much as I love Friday the 13th, a lot of those movies don't hold up as well as that first Halloween, And I think that's all John Carpenter. Right?
I mean, they all came after anyway, so that's not really the point that we're making. But
what I'm saying is
here though for Daredevil is that it's actually really good.
Yeah.
Right. No, usually when Pete's talking about Halloween, it's because it's better and than a lot of the prototypes that came before that fit the mold. Halloween was good enough that it was like, no, this is what gets remembered, and this is what hit the zeitgeist.
This is the impressive part of this, though, is that it's not that Daredevil wasn't good, or still isn't often very great, it's that somehow Batman's just that bit better. It usually is.
Well, it's the public consciousness, too, is that Batman's had way more time in the public consciousness than Daredevil.
Yeah,
you know?
I think this might be a case of people just, it's Batman, right? More than the quality, because the quality is brilliant.
Oh yeah, I was kind of joking there. If people actually like, you know, like people took my point really seriously and just kept talking about, no, like I'm cracking a joke. But the point is that Batman is more in the public consciousness. Batman's a bigger character than Daredevil. He always was. Mm-hmm. He always will be.
Yeah,
it's just kind of the way it is.
That said, a little piece of me always likes Daredevil a little bit more. Just because if he's a little bit more street level than Batman, like you can't because Daredevil things, despite him having superpowers. You know what I mean? Like all of his stuff has to come in line. Like the fact that his dad was a boxer and his never give up attitude comes from that.
But then, you know, you could take this further back though. Does Daredevil even exist if Batman doesn't exist?
I think so, because Stan Lee's a crazy guy, and he wanted to see if a blind hero could work. And
there may be a blind hero, you know what I mean? But I'm wondering Like, I mean, hell, does Marvel Comics exist if DC didn't create Superman and Batman and it all first? You know, does Stan Lee even?
Not.
Yeah.
Almost none of this exists without Superman. That's kind of a done deal.
I love how it works in a weave, though, right? They're like, they create Superman, and then you get Captain America, right? And you have the JSA, and they're all constantly weaving in and out of each other.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the point where I'd like to say, if you're enjoying this part of the conversation, please go and read Grant Morrison's Super Gods.
Yeah.
Because he does it way better than we can.
But that's the point I'm making, though, when you're bringing up that we should, you know, it's a shame for Daredevil. Like, well, yeah, but this bounces back between DC and Marvel constantly since the dawn of
I think
superheroes.
The reason I say it's a shame for Daredevil is it's because it's so much more obtuse and it's more distinctive. Like, no, this is a signature Batmaning out of the scene that Daredevil did.
I think this is just a case of like what Miller was doing with Daredevil at the time. Even at the time, someone said this would be perfect for Batman. The stuff that you're doing right now would be perfect for Batman.
Year one is post-crisis, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just trying to get this frame, and all this, the Daredevil stuff started in '82, right?
Early 80. I mean, I can tell you some dates. Hang on, let me.
Yeah, it's before Crisis. It's pre-Crisis.
Yeah.
Obviously,
not that we typically think of Marvel as being pre and post-Crisis, but you know what I mean.
Just for my own personal thing, I'm just seeing how far apart they are. You know,
it's about 5 years. It's about it's the same as start of Rebirth to now, based more or less.
Right. That's another thing that I like. Go ahead, Connor.
His Daredevil stuff is kind of we're looking at Batman.
Looks like a ghost. Look at him.
Yeah, no.
I know it's because it's all white screens. Hang on, let me put something back on the other monitor.
There we go.
That's about 1980.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about Superman is a lot of his mythos came from the radio show that we all know, like Kryptonite, and his ability to fly and all this other stuff. Because as cool as the Siegel and Schuster version of him is, and how he was this like standing up for the middle class, and he's going to defend people against the billionaires that want to do them wrong and whatnot. That's all great, but the stuff that made him, I think, a little bit more accessible, you know, and made him relatable, do come from that radio show, and it changed him for the better. And I like how characters can evolve over time like that. So like not that, I'm primarily a DC guy, but the fact that Daredevil helped shape Batman, and then Batman helped shape Daredevil later. Like there's this, because I know Kevin Smith talked about stuff that he wanted to do in Batman as what worked in his run.
His Daredevil run,
yeah,
it works.
Right. So, and then you could read some of his Batman work post Daredevil, and you're like, oh, this is kind of his Daredevil story. Like,
his Onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia would be a phenomenal Daredevil
villain. Like, it's just, I will never not love that interwovenness of the two companies.
Yep.
You know.
So. All right, so we'll wrap up then. The last thing I need to do is I have a Patreon book. I actually have 4 to do because I have one. This is the one I'm about to do. American Vampire issue 5 is actually one that I owed for last month. I let it slip to this month because last week was so busy. I thought, you know what, next week's going to be quiet. I'll do it next week. So I was going to do one per week. I've got 2 Patreon books. I've got the second American Vampire for this month, and David has purchased 2 comic reviews via tips on streams, so I have a couple of wacky issues to read for that. But I'm doing American Vampire issue 5 this week. So this is actually the end of the first arc. It was a 5-issue arc, but that's the end of 2 stories, because we have the Pearl story in 1920s, whatever, and we have the the origin of Skinner Sweet kind of rounding up in the backup. So basically, this is Pearl and Henry storming the vampires, and to do it quite quickly. It starts with a scene with the vampires are just kind of like, "Ma ha ha ha, we're still in charge. Ma ha ha ha, we'll we've got this going and that going." And they storm in, and it's just a massacre. They kill the shit out of these vampires, and it starts off with a little description of when she was a little girl, Pearl talking about how the dogs that they had in the house would always like scare, run and bark at anyone who was coming into the gate. But the one time they were scared was when a wolf showed up, because even though there was more of the dogs than the wolf was stronger. So she's comparing herself to the wolf. She's going to go into this pack of vampires, and it's like, no, but she's the American vampire now, right? Yeah. My favorite part of all this is that when they go to kill everyone, the vampires had basically a human tied up, like a woman tied up in chains that didn't have arms or legs anymore. It was just a head and a torso. Yeah. And at one point in the middle of the fight, one of the vampires just tosses this naked stump of a person towards Pearl. It's just a really over the top visual. Obviously, Albuquerque's doing all this over the top stuff. She eventually smashes the skylight, and sunlight comes beaming in because it's during the day. And they have the big thing, but she's like, no, there's one more thing I got to do. She has to go and get revenge on Hattie, who it turned out was working against her and is a vampire. So they have a fight too, and it's basically it. There's a lot of lunge at each other, there's a lot of claws, there's a lot of teeth, a lot of red streaks in the art, all this good stuff. Hattie does kind of plead a little bit just before she kills her, but Pearl takes the gold star off the door, because they're at the movie studio, and shoves it in her mouth. Oof. Really violent. Yeah, and basically her and Henry are going to go away together. They're on a date at the pier, and just before they go, Skinner Sweet shows up, sort of disguised in a hat, and says, "Hey, do you want to come run away with me instead?" And she's like, "Nah, no fat chance." He's like, "Ah, well, goodbye for now, because we're bound to run into each other at some point." And of course, this is a tease for the future, because they're both immortal vampires now, so they're bound to run into each other at some point, and there's future arcs in there to be had. So it's kind of this happy ending where they're together, without them ever really acknowledging that she's going to stay the same age and he's going to grow old. But I mean, that's a story for another arc. And I do recall them getting into it. So I mean, yeah, the final part of the main story is basically just them going and murdering everyone who's wronged them. But it all looks so glorious, and then this Skinner Sweet moment's a nice little tease. The backup, the end of the origin of Skinner Sweet, with the author telling the story, we see that Skinner Sweet's actually in the crowd for this, wanting to hear the end of the story. He's telling this hidden final chapter, where Book's becoming a vampire, he's killing animals, he's not proud of himself, and the daughter of his friend, Abby, is in love with them, wants to be with them, and he refuses. But then when he asks her to kill him, she says she'll only do it if she can get what she wants first, if she can sleep with him. So he reluctantly sleeps with her, and this kind of, we intercut some of him eating a sheep, with Skinner finally being let out of the cave-in that he was trapped in the end of last issue, and the European vampires want to bring him into the fold, and essentially you can kind of see that they're trying to control him by offering, and we'll make him feel important, we'll make him feel like we're giving him territory, and Skinner just drags him out into the sunlight and watches him die. He doesn't give a shit. So it's just classic Skinner. It's this final sort of big statement of who he is, what type of character he is. But like I say, Book and Abby have sex, and he insists she kill him. She's crying her eyes out. She's not happy about it, but she does what he wants. She'll actually just shoots him, but she does it, of course, when there's no full moon, which is when the American vampires are at their weakest. But of course, the final little tease here is that she had a baby. It's a year later, she's got a baby at the grave. The writer's still with her, and we see Skinner gives a note to the author as he's finished telling his story, saying that he's not going to kill him because he's so old and miserable that he's going to die, alone and pathetic, and that's more of a punishment than any quick death by him would give him. But the final tease is that as Skinner leaves this bookstore, just sort of whistling to himself. Abby and her daughter, who is now about 13 or whatever. What was the Felicia? That was the daughter's name. She's like, that's the man who destroyed your father. Not today, but soon. Soon. I can almost see that meme of the wolf in the back, or the dog in the back seat looking in the rearview mirror. It was the soon. So that's kind of the tease there. So I like that both stories end with a tease of where things could go in the future. It really feels like the book in one arc, well, technically two arcs, bundled together, but it really has built so much mythology already, where I'm excited to see, okay, her and the daughter come for revenge. And then also, where does where does Pearl's story go? Sorry, next. Like, where does that go next? And if I remember correctly, the second arc does veer away from one of the characters, if I remember right.
One of my favorite characters of all time.
Yeah, so. I think Pearl takes like an arc off, and then we come back to her later. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Skinner takes an arc off. I don't know. But it's been a while. But I'm looking forward to reading it though. But issue 5 is really good. The first arcs are both really good. I think the only thing that hurts the first arc is because the backups there, the main story is a little bit shorter than a typical comic.
Yeah.
And because of that, it feels like the main chapters are over a bit quickly. You could have probably had this in 4 issues that were more satisfying. But obviously the backup's really good too. So I guess what I'm saying is I just wish these were just released as 2 separate arcs in a more traditional format. But like, they're both really good. So if you're reading them in trade, it doesn't matter. But reading them one by one like this is a little bit weird, pacing wise. But other than that, art's great. Horror, mythology's all good. Can't really fault it. So thank you, Tyler, for making me read a good book.
Nah, man, just wait till you get to Survival of the Fittest.
Oh, I've read it before, Matt. Oh,
gotcha. Well,
yeah.
That's another one of my favorite stories of all time. There's that one with
really
Snyder. It's Snyder and Murphy doing like Castlevania style stuff. So basically, if you enjoyed White Knight or Curse of the White Knight for that type of stuff, just imagine that set in World War II.
Yeah, or if you enjoyed Overlord, maybe that kind of feeds into there.
Yeah, and if you're wondering why Matt enjoyed this so much, I think you've just got your answer.
Yep.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's my Patriot book for the week. So next we'll have another one. I think Connor's got a couple this month, so he'll probably have one next week, right?
Yeah, I've got to do an issue of Red Hood and something for Tyler to decide, because it's looking like I'm not getting Undiscovered Country this month, let's be honest.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So that'll be coming next week. I think we'll take a week off from questions, so people can have, think of questions for the week after, essentially. And we'll have another segment instead. But we'll talk about what movies we've been watching, games we've been playing, comics we've been reading, again, any news that comes up, and keep going from there. Me and Matt will have a wrestling chat, but so if you have ideas for segments, feel free to suggest them. We might not take them, obviously, but no harm in suggesting. Maybe it'll spark an idea for us. But this is kind of just a get together podcast for the next few weeks, at least until we get books again and we can go back to normal. But hopefully this was still something that you enjoyed listening to. Obviously it's still timestamped, so if you don't care about wrestling, you can skip the wrestling section. You don't care about video games, you can skip the video game section.
I could skip the wrestling section.
Yeah.
Well, tough titty. All right, tough titty. But of course, you could fill us in on anything we've talked about, any of your thoughts in the comments. You can like and subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at DC Comics Podcast. You can, of course, go over to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and support us for as little as $1 per month. Keep all the content coming. At the $5 tier, of course, you get the podcast a day early. That goes for all the Multiverse shows. Quarantine Comics previously is coming this coming week. We kind of skipped an extra week there, but it will be weekly now. Going forward, starting with this episode that's coming up this coming week. So look forward to that. Otherwise, check out other stuff we have. Obviously, we mentioned Screams After Midnight, the horror movie podcast, the Atomic Cinema Experiment, the sci-fi movie podcast. Those are worth checking out. Me and Cara do a lot of TV reviews. So go and have a look-see. But otherwise, that's us. So thank you once again. I'll just one last thing before I forget. Patreon producers, let me just thank them. I mentioned Patreon already, but I should really thank the producers. So thank you to David Short, Alison M. Forday, Cindy Palacios, and Tyler Hess. That means they're patrons at $20 or above, so they get a shout out on some of the bigger shows. So yeah, thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep staying home.
Yes. Flatten the curve.
Yes. Keep staying home, washing your hands and not touching your face, and never get quarantined in the multiverse. I don't know.
Oh, man.
What?
See, this is where my oppositional comes in. Pete said, "Don't touch your face." I immediately wanted to do it.
No, don't do that. Don't do that.
It's really bad for me as a nail biter.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, nail biter. We should talk about that.
Don't spread viruses in the Speed Force. Bye, guys.